The chill of dawn lingered over Winterfell, a quiet frost silvering the ramparts as Eddard Stark guided his horse across the drawbridge. For years, the great keep had sat under a pall of uncertainty, ruled in truth by Catelyn and Maester Luwin, while her lord husband pursued war in the south. Yet on this spring morning, rumor swept ahead of him like a thaw wind. Lord Stark had returned not merely as Warden of the North, but bearing a secret that would reshape every hearth and hall from White Harbor to the Wall. Ned dismounted in the courtyard to find his children gathered as if in silent tribute. Robb, already tall and broad-shouldered despite his 15 years, clasped the pommel of his sword with disciplined stillness. Sansa, auburn hair pinned with a maiden's modesty, wore hope in the tilt of her chin, a wistful trace of the courtly songs she nursed in private. Arya, barefoot as ever, stared up at her father with wolf-bright eyes, half embrace, half challenge. Bran sat astride Hodor's massive shoulders, his small legs tucked in the giant's grip, and little Rickon clung to old Nan's skirts, face hidden in woolen folds. Yet it was the boy beside Ned who drew every gaze, dark-haired, gray-eyed, riding at a pace that matched the Lord's own. Jon Snow had left Winterfell a bastard, his future destined for the cold cloisters of the Night's Watch. He returned arrayed in stark colors, with the direwolf sigil rising proud upon his surcoat. The hall murmured in ripples, some in confusion, some in recognition, some in fear of long-buried whispers. In the Godswood, beneath limbs budding pale green, Ned brought wife and children together. Sunlight mapped soft patterns through the weirwood leaves, white trunks streaked crimson like drying tears. Catelyn's expression hardened, for in Jon's face she saw the old wound of another woman's betrayal. Yet Ned lifted a calm hand, still calloused from campaign steel, bidding silence. "I have walked paths of honor and sorrow," he said, voice low, "and I return laden with truths that cannot stay hidden. Jon is no nameless snow begotten on my shame. He is my blood, yes, but not in the fashion whispered in alehouses." He drew forth a parchment sealed with wax faded to a dull rose. "In Dorne, I discovered proof left by my sister Lyanna. Jon is the son of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and my sister, born in lawful union beneath the shield of the old gods and the new." Wind hissed through the branches, as if the old gods themselves sucked in a breath. Robb's sword hand slackened. Sansa placed fingers to parted lips. Arya's eyes widened with brighter wonder than when she'd first loosed an arrow true. Bran leaned forward in Hodor's grasp, desperate to hear more, and Rickon merely clutched harder at old Nan's hand. Ned continued, measured and relentless. King Robert knew fragments, but the truth threatened his reign. "I swore silence to protect this boy, my nephew, until a day came when secrets would corrupt us more than any war." He knelt before Jon, looking up into the face that mirrored both Stark solemnity and Targaryen resolve. "Today, I name you Jon Stark, heir to Winterfell and the North, son of my sister whom I love." Catelyn's breath stuttered, her throat tight as a drawn bowstring. Yet Ned's next words all but felled her. "To seal Stark unity, and to honor vows old as the first men, I intend a marriage between Jon and Arya, when the gods deem them of age." Shock rippled across Arya's small frame. Half outrage, half a fierce spark of honor she scarcely understood. Robb opened his mouth, then closed it, glancing between his sister and his new acknowledged cousin, with the confusion of a battle command reversed mid-charge. Jon, stunned, saw worlds tilt. Bastard to heir, brother to betrothed, memory to destiny. But the hush did not last. From outer bailey to inner hall, whispers turned to tremors. Of Targaryen blood in the north, of royal claim entwined with northern independence, of marriage that would keep the dire wolves united no matter what banners flew beyond the neck. Ravens took wing before sundown, carrying tidings that would shake every lord who owed Ned Stark fealty, and those who would rather see Winterfell burn than kneel to a dragon-breed heir. Over the following moons, the castle thrummed with new purpose. Maester Luwin's ravens returned laden with confirmations. Stannis Baratheon on Dragonstone raised no sword. Renly in Storm's End sent polite curiosity. The Lannisters sat silent behind the red walls of Casterly Rock, silence more ominous than any host. In the kennels, Grey Wind took to Jon as though scenting a kinship of spirits. Ghost, grown large and lean, shadowed Arya upon parapets at dusk, his red eyes twin coals in the dying light. Lady lingered by Sansa, warm and mild, while Summer and Shaggy Dog wrestled in snow-soft yards, yipping beneath Bran's delighted calls. The direwolves, 6 as 1, became living omen of House Stark's unbroken bond. Yet within Catelyn Stark brewed storms. One eve she approached Ned in the bedchamber overlooking the glass gardens. "You kept this secret and thrust it upon us like a blade in our backs," she said, voice trembling with controlled fury. "You asked me to see a Targaryen raised to lordship, and worse, to wed my daughter," Ned answered with the quiet weight of iron. "I ask you to see our children safe. The South remains a wasp nest." Robert's reign wavers upon his own vices. "When war sweeps north again, I would have my house bound so tightly no spear may pierce it." "Mendenhauer." Catelyn turned away, tears bright on her cheeks. "You gamble their futures on dragon's wings and wolf blood alike." He set a hand upon her shoulder. "I stake my life and name, Cat. But not on dragons. On love, and on truth that should have been spoken long ago." Slowly she nodded, though resentment etched faint lines around her mouth. In the moon-washed dark, Ned knew peace would come only with time. And time was the one treasure wars always sought to steal. Jon Stark learned lordship beneath his uncle father's stern gaze. He pored over ledgers with Maester Luwin until Candlewick guttered, walked fields with Sir Roderick to inspect levy drills, sat in council where Glover, Manderley, Karstark, and Umber debated harvest yields and river fords. Each lord gauged him differently, many with wary eyes, some with hope of new ties through Targaryen claim, a few with distrust as old as the Wolfswood pines. Arya watched those councils from the gallery, restless fingers itching for swordplay. The notion of marriage hung over her like an iron crown 2 sizes too large. She sparred with Jon in the yard at dawn, and though he bested her with measured grace, he treated her not as fragile betrothed, but as equal. Between parries they spoke of freedom, of fears, of names. "If we wed," Arya muttered one morning, sweat beading her brow, "I won't be some lady sewing by the hearth." Jon smiled, gloved grip tightening on his practiced sword. "Then let the songs tell of a Stark lady who wields needle steel sharper than any knight's." She laughed, launching into a thrust that Jon narrowly deflected. Their blades rang clear in the frosty air, echoing across towers still older than recorded time. It was a sound full of promise, of unity forged in mutual respect, rather than chains of custom. Beyond Winterfell's walls, winds of politics gathered like ravens before a storm. In King's Landing, Queen Cersei Lannister read Ned's raven with narrowed green eyes and a calculating smile. A Targaryen heir in the north. She mused to her brother Jaime, golden hair gleaming by candlelight. A potential rival or a useful thorn to prick Robert's pride. Either way, the game grows intriguing. Varys the spider scuttled through Red Keep passages, whispering tidings of dragon seeds sprouting in Winterfell snows. Littlefinger weighed ledgers and alliances, lips curling at the thought of new markets stirred by northern upheaval. And far across the narrow sea, exiled Viserys Targaryen heard rumors borne by merchant captains. Fury burned in his violet gaze at mention of a half-Stark, half-Targaryen claimant hailed as heir to ancient Winterfell. In Dragonstone, Stannis Baratheon frowned over scrollwork long into the night. "If Stark declares the boy legitimate," he told Davos Seaworth, "then Robert's claim to the throne, won by fire and rebellion, faces question. Rhaegar's son may hold royal blood pure as any Baratheon, yet pride warred with justice in the Lord's eyes, leaving decision suspended like a sword above hauling waves." Back north, as autumn tinted leaves crimson, Ned called his bannermen to Winterfell. Long tables groaned with trenchers of venison and casks of umber ale, but talk was sober. "The South may seek to meddle," Ned warned, voice grave beneath hall torches. "Yet the North is no field for southern games. Jon Stark will succeed me. His betrothal to Arya binds our house. His dragon blood does not sever our wolf roots." Lord Rickard Karstark thumped a gauntlet to oak. "We follow you, Lord Eddard. But dragon blood breeds fire. Best we guide it than see it unleashed. Lord Wyman Manderley nodded, many-chinned but keen-eyed. Winter's ice and dragon's flame may forge steel unmatched. Roose Bolton's pale lips curved in a smile thin as flayed skin. Let us hope the forge does not melt the smith. Yet even he raised no open objection, for the North respected strength, and secrets welded to public oath. As snows began their slow descent, Jon and Arya knelt together before the heart tree, red leaves drifting about them like silent witnesses. Ned spoke words of betrothal older than Maegor's holdfast, promising union when the moon marked Arya, a woman grown. Ghost sat at Jon's left, gray wind at his right. Their howls rose together, answered by Lady's soft keen and the playful yips of Summer and Shaggadog. The sound scattered crows from frosted branches, spiraling into pale sky. In the quiet after, Arya touched Jon's hand, brief, uncertain. "We'll make our own shape of marriage," she whispered. "We will," Jon answered, eyes reflecting weirwood blood sap and new-fallen snow. Together. The realm, however, seldom grants time for buds to bloom. Come spring, ravens winged north bearing a royal summons. King Robert Baratheon would visit Winterfell to confirm Ned's tales with his own eyes. On their heels came darker news. In the Riverlands, Lannister levies mustered under Tywin's cold command, citing bandit raids as pretext. Ned read the letters beneath flickering candlelight in his solar, Catelyn at his side. "The game begins," he murmured. Robert would drink and hunt, but Cersei eyes larger prey. "We must greet the king with open gates and sharper senses." He glanced to Jon, who stood tall in wolf fur cloak. "Your blood may invite both crown and knife." Jon answered with calm, untested by war, but honed in Winterfell's iron discipline. "I will not shrink, father. I will honor both lineages, wolf and dragon." Ned clasped his shoulder, proud sorrow flickering in gray eyes. "Then may the old gods guide us, for winter and fire both draw near." The royal procession arrived beneath banners golden and black, hooves churning late spring mud. Robert dismounted, girth straining gilded doublet, but laughter rolling like thunder. He embraced Ned in a bear hug, yet his gaze snapped to Jon, measuring. Over feasts of roasted boar and strong wine, Robert jested of old victories and heavier bellies, but each jest returned to the boy prince of Rhaegar's line. On the third night, in Ned's solar, Robert spoke plainly. "Tell me true, old friend. Is the lad a danger? Or a bridge, twixt dragon and wolf?" Ned poured wine but did not drink. "He is both, Robert. A danger if used, a bridge if honored. Let him guard the north, and he may steady your realm. Hunt him as threat, and you will bleed the kingdom dry." Robert stared into the flames, seeing ghosts of fallen princes. "7 hells, Ned. The war I won may not be done after all." He drained his cup. "But I'll give you your chance. If the boy proves loyal, I'll acknowledge him Lord of Winterfell." Yet his eyes betrayed unease deeper than the chalice. Cersei watched from marble corridors, green gaze hard as cut glass. That night, a raven flew from the maester's tower, bearing her seal toward Casterly Rock. Tywin would not ignore a queen's silent summons. As summer's warmth swept over the neck, banners stirred on horizons. Tywin Lannister's host marched east, armor gleaming like a field of brass. He spoke of bandits, but his scouts drove deeper, gauging river crossings toward the Trident. In Dragonstone, Stannis began to gather ships. In Storm's End, Renly penned letters weighted with honeyed promises to Highgarden. And in Pentos, the whispers of a golden prince reached sellsword, ears eager for lost crowns. Within Winterfell, Ned marshaled his own levies, quiet as falling snow. He trained Jon in command, Robb at his side, Arya striding the yard with Needle, while Bran watched from a new-built saddle contraption of leather and dwarf-forged steel. Catelyn walked ramparts at dusk, wondering if oaths sworn in heartwood shade could withstand the fires of southern intrigue. Yet in the crypts, beneath stone kings who once ruled the north as sovereigns, Jon Stark descended one eve alone. He paused before Lyanna's effigy, torchlight flickering over the face carved with girlish softness and silent sorrow. "Mother," he whispered, voice catching on the word he'd never spoken. "I will honor your love and father's trust. I will guard Arya, my sister-to-be wife, and I will keep the North safe, even if dragon fire awakens in my veins." The statue offered only silence, but in the stillness Jon felt something stir. Neither chill of death nor warmth of life, but a sense of watchful presence, as though the old kings of winter approved. He turned away, unaware of a shadow in the archway. Arya barefoot, listening with fierce, unshed tears. She stepped beside him, slipping her hand into his. No words passed between them, for their promise had already been written in heartwood and blood. Together, they climbed the narrow steps into lantern glow above, where summer's last peace waited to be broken by the drums of approaching war. The first swords would cross beside the Red Fork before harvest's end, but on this quiet eve Winterfell still breathed with hope. Two young hearts bound by love and duty, one lord ready to risk all for unity, and a realm poised upon the razor edge between dragonfire and northern ice. Their story, barely begun, would echo for generations, shaping the fate of kingdoms yet unimagined. And so beneath a sky bruised violet with sunset, the direwolves howled as one. A song of homecoming, of vows forged anew, of blood made whole. In that chorus trembled an omen, that Stark would stand, wolf and dragon entwined, against every storm to come. Okay. And I. The sun crept over Winterfell's eastern wall, like a cautious spy, gilding the towers in pale gold that did little to warm the morning air. Within the great hall, breakfast was subdued. Rough bread, honey stirred into steaming porridge, and the constant, muffled cadence of thoughts grinding behind expectant faces. Ned Stark sat at the table's head, chair angled so he could watch the doors and the corridors beyond. Habit born of battlefields, where an untended flank spelled death. Across from him, Robert Baratheon nursed a cup of strong black tea. An uncharacteristic choice that spoke volumes about the weight pressing on his tunic-clad chest. Jon kept his gaze upon the maps between them. Fresh ink marked Lannister troop movements. Arrows fanning east from Casterly Rock, spears gathered at River Run's borders, supply wagons trickling down the Gold Road. Every mark was a promise of blood yet unshed. Arya perched on a stool beside Maester Luwin, feigning interest in Raven reports while stealing glances at her father's face. She saw new lines there. Creases that came when a man measured the distance between duty and doom. When the hall emptied, Robert exhaled a long sigh that fluttered the parchment. "I remember you lighter, Ned," he rumbled, laughing under the same sky at the trident. "Now we're old men counting how many sons we might bury." "We were never truly young," Ned answered, voice soft but certain. "War doesn't grant youth. It only postpones the reckoning." "Now." "And now comes another." Robert's fist tightened. Cersei feels the North slipping from her grasp. She'll have her father sharpen the crown like a blade if she thinks it'll cut you. 7 hells, if Tywin sizes up this Jon as a threat, he'll march half the realm to spill the boy's blood. Ned's eyes flashed, the wolf showing between calm words. That road leads through the neck, and the neck is narrow. But Lannisters line their purses so heavy, even a Crannog man's spear might snap from the weight. Robert leaned forward, expression softening. "Tell me true. Does Jon hunger for the Iron Throne?" "He hungers for justice, for peace, for a place to belong." Ned's reply came without hesitation. If a throne were the price to secure those things, he would pay it, but he's no usurper. Justice and peace. Robert chuckled bitterly. 2 fool's dreams that die with every swing of a sword. Ned did not smile. They die only when men like us stop defending them. Robert stared at his hands, the once sure fingers that had held Prince Rhaegar's fate the way a falcon grips a dove. "Men like us grow tired, Ned. Bones ache. Hearts falter." He lifted his gaze. "Promise me you'll keep the boy safe. Promise me you'll keep Arya safe. And for the love I once bore your sister, Promise me you'll keep yourself alive in this storm." "I will try," Ned said. "Then I'll do my part." Robert pushed to his feet. "I'll return to King's Landing and keep the Vipers quarreling among themselves as long as I can. A fat drunk king still has uses. He can sit on a throne and block the gateway." Ned followed him to the courtyard, where cold wind tugged the king's cloak like an impatient servant. Servants loaded wagons with half-casks of Winterfell ale, Robert's favored souvenir. When at last the entourage clattered through the gates, Arya emerged from the stair, needle tucked through her belt. "Does he believe us?" she asked. "He believes enough to stand between us and danger." Ned's breath misted. "For now, that is all we require." Jon found Robb drilling with Sir Roderick Castle upon the practice yard, blunted longswords rising and falling in precise arcs. Snowmelt turned the packed earth slick, but the future Lord of Winterfell moved with controlled confidence, boots never losing purchase. Spectators murmured approval until Jon stepped forward, gray cloak stirring at his heels. "Care for a bout?" Jon asked, voice steady but carrying. Robb sheathed the practice blade, sweat shining along his jaw. "You've spent more time in ledgers than in the yard of late." "That may be, but a lord who cannot fight beside his men is no true lord." Roderick grinned under his iron-gray whiskers. "Well said. Take the guards' vambraces, no fancy flourishes. Just steel and will." Bentur. They squared off, blades raised. Stark retainers leaned over fence rails to witness the contest between blood brothers, now cast as heir and war commander. The clang of metal rang crisp in the morning. Robb pressed early, raining swift overhead strikes that Jon deflected, pivoting to bleed momentum. Jon countered with a thrust, tip sliding off Robb's guard before he rolled beneath a rye-post. Snow spattered their boots, cold flecks stinging flushed cheeks. Minutes stretched. Robb's aggression met Jon's efficiency, wolf versus wolf, each probing for weakness. Yet they fought without anger. Each clash of iron rang with mutual respect. When at last Roderick called halt, neither had scored a decisive hit. "Well met," Robb said, clapping Jon's shoulder. Jon nodded, breathing hard. "Winter may test us harder than any practice yard, brother." Robb's blue eyes sharpened. "Then we'll face it side by side. Those southern lions don't know northern frost." "They soon might," Jon murmured. They parted, but a new thread of shared command wove between them. Fabric stronger than any suit of mail. Catelyn Stark stood at the ramparts overlooking the Wolfswood, dusk bleeding mauve over distant treetops. She felt rather than heard footsteps, and turned as Luwin approached, bundled against wind. "Lady Stark," the maester greeted. "Ravens from River Run. Your brother Edmure commands more scouts along the Red Fork. He offers refuge for the children should Winterfell face siege." Catelyn folded the parchment. "My children will not be scattered like seed before the crows. They belong at their hearth." And even so, caution. There has been no caution. She whispered. "Not since the day Ned returned with that boy and a storm between us." She rubbed her arms. "Tell me, maester, does loyalty require we swallow every sorrow? I don't know if the gods require such sacrifice." "Sacrifice, perhaps," Luwin replied gently, "but not silence. You may speak to him. Secrets fester. They turn hearts to stone." Catelyn's eyes glistened but did not spill. "Every time I look at Jon, I see my own failings. Not his blood, mine. The jealousy, the bitterness." She drew a breath sharpened by cold. "But Arya loves him. Bran worships him. Even Rickon tries to follow his steps. If I cannot welcome him, I fracture what Ned seeks to mend." "It is no small thing," the maester said. "Yet hearts can heal. Stone can weather into something gentler." Catelyn nodded, but her shoulders trembled. "I will try." For them. Below, torches hummed to life, casting orange dances upon courtyard stone. In their glow she saw Jon emerging from the kennels, ghost pacing at his side, white shadow under firelit dusk. Catelyn watched boy and direwolf cross the yard, and felt the first true thaw within her chest. fragile yet undeniable. Across the neck, banners snapped above Moat Caelan's ruined towers as a force of northerners shored up defenses. Theon Greyjoy sat upon a fallen rampart, crossbow across his knees, watching marsh birds wheel over the bogs. What once had been a lax garrison was now a hive. Blacksmiths forging arrowheads, carpenters repairing palisades, scouts venturing into neck-deep water to plant warning stakes. Ser Jorah Mormont, returned from exile by Ned's pardon and a pledge of fealty, strode up the slope. His bare cloak swayed heavy. "Lord Stark expects visitors," he said without ceremony. Theon snorted. "You mean southern filth?" "Southern knights are no less deadly in bogs," Jorah replied. "But they don't ride mummers' horses through swamp water. We hold this choke, they cannot break north. And if the sea lions come by ship, my father keeps his distance. But he hates Lannisters more than Starks." Theon's grin showed sharp teeth. He might fancy a raid on Lannisport, while Tywin empties his coffers on river crossings. Jorah's eyes narrowed. "You Greyjoys treat war like a tide. Careful it does not drown you." Theon shrugged, but in his gaze flickered something like allegiance. "I serve Ned, but I won't mourn if golden lions choke on salt." The Bear Knight offered no answer. Together, they surveyed soldiers lighting signal fires along the battlements, sparks rising into deepening dusk like fiery prayers. War was coming, but Winterfell's sentinels would greet it first. At Dragonstone, crackling surf echoed through the grim halls as Stannis Baratheon studied a letter sealed in direwolf wax. Davos Seaworth, fingers drumming wooden chart table, waited for the Lord to speak. Smoke from a brazier curled between them, ghosting over painted table ridges. "The boy is legitimate," Stannis said at last, voice flat. "My wife praises the gods for vengeance upon whore's bastards, yet here stands a prince born in wedlock. Robert will balk." Davos leaned forward. "The king loves Lord Stark. Friendship may temper fear. Robert loves wine, loves the hunt, loves memories of victory more than governance." Stannis' mouth twisted. "If Lannisters strike north and Stark stands alone, the realm will fracture. Dragons and wolves vying for crown, chaos that serves no one." "Then march south, not north," Davos ventured softly. "Remove Cersei's claws from the capital. Help your brother before the lions rouse." Stannis' fingers tapped the parchment. But Robert will not thank me. He'll call it treason unless I bring him proof of the incest rumors I taste in every rumor's smoke." He looked toward the narrow window, where fog crept like ghosts across Blackwater tide. "Still, I will not sit idle. Summon Salladhor Saan. We sail for King's Landing before fortnight's end." Davos bowed, relief mingling with dread. The sea would carry them into roosting vipers, but hesitation had slain more kings than swords. Pentosi market simmered under midday sun. Spice scent, thick as soup. Within a shaded atrium, Illyrio Mopatis spread silk across a marble table, eyes glittering as Viserys Targaryen paced like a caged cat. Another gift arrives from Winterfell, Illyrio cooed, sliding forth a raven scroll lifted from suspicious sailors. "Ned Stark names your nephew Jon Stark, heir to the north. Bastard no longer." Viserys' laughter was brittle glass. "Nephew, a wolf pup in dragon skin is no kin of mine. Conscript northern ignorance into your scheme, Illyrio, but don't wave false princes before me." Illyrio's many rings clinked. "Yet if Westeros nurtures a half-dragon whelp, your claim grows murkier. Some may prefer a boy raised by honorable Starks to a prince raised by foreign pockets." Viserys slammed a goblet, wine splashing over parchment. "Then I'll drown them in fire. This Jon will learn what true dragon heat feels like." "How, my prince? You still lack ships, soldiers, coin." Viserys inhaled, controlling his rage. "Allies gather beyond your notice. Dothraki riders hunger for conquest, and Essosi bankers count profits richer than Lannister gold." Illyrio smiled. "Perhaps. But each day your nephew's name rides northern winds, and each raven erodes your pedestal. Consider nuance as well as fire." Then Viserys stalked away, boots clicking on tile. Yet beneath simmering fury, seeds of anxiety took root, watered by Illyria's subtle barbs. In Winterfell's library, torches hissed, casting long tongues of light across shelves. Jon and Bran sat at a large oaken table, scattered with tomes. Bran turned pages of the Conqueror's Anvil, while Jon traced river markings upon an old vellum chart. "Old Nan says dragons once flew across the neck," Bran noted, voice full of wonder. "If dragons fear north less than lions, maybe they'll aid us." Jon smiled. "Old Nan also says giants still wander the high forests, yet we rarely see them." "But giants are shy," Bran insisted. "Dragons are proud. Pride or timid, allies are forged by deeds, not legend." Jon folded the chart. "Still, my blood ties me to dragonfire. Perhaps there is power there we have not claimed." Bran's eyes gleamed. "Could you hatch a dragon egg, Jon?" "I don't know." Jon glanced at Shadowcat's sigils of the Freehold. "If such eggs even survive, they lie in hidden crypts across the sea. We have other battles first." "Nice." Footsteps sounded. Arya slipped in, cheeks flushed from practice. "Needle grows dull without a target. Come spar, brothers." Bran sighed. "After I finish these pages. Maester says knowledge is a blade sharper than any sword." Arya rolled her eyes but grinned. "Then I shall behead a few dusty chapters." Jon rose. "I'll join you. Books will wait. Lannisters will not." They left amid Bran's muttered protests, Ghost padding at their heels, tail swishing dust motes. Books closed, but understanding lingered. Of power yet uncaged, of dragons whose echoes still stirred northern snows. Tywin Lannister studied reports in Casterly Rock Solar, while golden sun poured through arabesque windows. By the hearth, Cersei stood in travel cloak, eyes hard. Robert returned from Winterfell spouting caution, she said. He refused to sign a writ declaring Jon Snow traitor or decrying Ned's claim. Instead, he drinks and hunts more than ever. Tywin's jaw flexed. Baratheon's inaction is predictable. Drunkards seldom wield quills effectively. Fortunately, quills are not our only recourse. Nando. Cersei approached the map. If we cross the Green Fork swiftly, we isolate Winterfell before bannermen converge, and abandon the king's peace entirely. Tywin shook his head. No. First we sever allies. The Riverlands lie between us and the north. The Starks rely on Tully kinship. We shall test that bond. Hoster Tully is dying. A shadow flickered behind Cersei's lashes. Edmure is bold, but untested. Precisely. Send Gregor Clegane to raid the Trident. Pillage villages, but claim Riverlord bandits responsible. Let Edmure bleed his levies chasing phantoms while we raise proper armies. And no. And the north? Tywin's eyes cooled to molten bronze. Winter comes. Supply lines freeze. Wolf packs starve. We need only survive one bad harvest to weaken them. Meanwhile, our gold will buy sellswords, grain, and loyalty. Cersei's smile curved. A slow kill. A certain kill. Tywin sealed a scroll. See it done. Back in Winterfell, ravens arrived bearing news of Riverland skirmishes. Ned summoned Jon, Robb, Catelyn, Maester Luwin, and loyal lords to the council chamber. Gregor's marauders torch villages, Ned reported. Edmure rallies river knights, but cannot catch them. This is provocation. Tywin stirring chaos to divide Stark from Tully. Robb slammed fist to oak. Send our riders south, father. Grey Wind and I can help Tully crush the mountain. To march now risks overextending, cautioned Lord Karstark. We defend the neck first. But Jon spoke, tone deliberate. If we let Tully spill blood alone, southern lords will see the north as cowards cloaked in ice. Our honor binds us, yet we must march smart, not swift. Ned nodded thoughtfully. Agreed. Robb, you will ride with 2,000 spears. Only fast horse and light provisions. Aid Edmure, harry Gregor's raiders, but do not engage Tywin's main host. Show the Riverlands that wolves answer their kin's cries, but do not be bait. Damn? Robb's eyes gleamed with fierce duty. It will be done. And you, Jon, Ned continued. The neck remains ours to hold. Theon and Jorah command Moat Cailin. But the marsh demands a Stark. You will oversee defenses, learn its every bog and ford. Ghost will know the land as well as any ranger. Jon bowed. I will not yield an inch. See that you don't. Take Arya with you. Now. Arya started. Father? You are betrothed to Winterfell's heir, Ned said. You should witness the land you will defend, and your blade will serve at Moat Cailin's walls. He met her gaze. This is no idle venture, but I trust your strength. She swallowed excitement. Squeezing Jon's hand under the table, Catelyn exhaled shakily. And I will remain? Old Winterfell with Bran and Rickon. Ned touched her fingers. First warm gesture since secrets unveiled. Together we guard every flank. The day Robb rode south, banners streamed behind him like red-orange streaks at dawn. Gray wind loped ahead, haunting warhorses with silent anticipation. Catelyn clasped her son's arm, whispering prayers to the seven she'd seldom voiced in northern frost. Robb kissed her cheek, then gripped Ned's forearm. Bring glory to Winterfell, Ned said, voice low, and return to feast beneath our roof. I will bring victory or die on the path, Robb replied. No arrogance in his vow, just simple resolve. Jon watched from battlements until the last rider vanished among pine ridge shadows. Then he turned northward, where swamps awaited. He found Arya waiting by the stables, hooded, travel pack slung. Needle gleamed at her hip. Ready? She asked. Ace ready as any man walking into bog water and biting flies. Jon smiled. They rode with a guard of 50 hand-picked men, lean veterans hardened by frost. Ghost trotted beside Jon's mount. Nymeria padded after Arya, eyes amber in twilight gloom. The party wound along the King's Road, then veered into Trackless Neck, where shaggy willows dripped gray beards into black pools and frogs croaked dirges. Weeks passed in marsh stench and creeping mists. They fortified ancient watchtowers, hammered plank walkways, rigged spiked pitfalls under knee-high water. Arya mastered the blow dart, silent poison to fell any armored knight who thought the swamp an easy field. Jon studied tidal flows. He learned to gauge sinking ground by subtle shivers of reeds. At dusk, they sparred on wooden platforms, feet sliding on algae-slick planks, each bout forging mutual trust. One night after a brutal drill, they sat upon a log, boots dangling above still water mirror bright under a crescent moon. Do you think Robb will win? Arya whispered. He fights with our father's wisdom, Jon answered. And with river lords behind him, Tywin's mountain is fierce, but not invincible. Arya traced Needle's pommel. I wish I were there. I need you here, Jon said softly. Your eyes find things my plans miss. She grinned. I'll scout the bog tomorrow. Show you which channel floods fastest. Jon nodded, but his gaze lingered on her. Moonlight rimmed the line of her jaw, no longer childish roundness but something keener. A pang pulsed beneath his breast, equal parts affection and awe, tempered by the knowledge they would one day bind their fates before gods and men. He rose. Rest. Dawn brings new mud and mosquitoes. Arya sheathed Needle. Mosquitoes fear Stark blood. She declared. Then we're doomed. They'll drink us dry. Their laughter stole into night fog, a fragile thing carried on owl wings. South, the Riverlands burned. Robb's outriders met Edmure Tully beneath the charred husk of Windish Town, where smoke still choked the sky. Gray wind prowled around corpses, hackles raised. Robb clasped Edmure's blood-smeared hand. Where's the mountain? Robb asked. Gone north with pillage, Edmure rasped. We struck only stragglers. He moves like wildfire, appears, scorches, vanishes. Then we become the firebreak. Robb's mind raced. He ordered scouts on swift steeds to track Gregor's columns, while his main host, shadowed riverlords along safer roads. They found villages ransacked, tracks leading toward the Red Fork, but no mountain. Nights. Robb wrote letters by flickering camp torches. One to his father reporting positions, one to Jon with words of brotherly banter disguised as strategic updates, and one to Sansa, gentlest of all, promising songs when swords silenced. Meanwhile, Tywin coiled deeper behind his host near Harrenhal, waiting for the northern cub to overextend. But Robb moved like a fisherman, teasing enemy lines, never swallowing the hook. When Gregor at last turned east to burn salt pans, Robb struck from the rear, cutting supply wagons and freeing captives. The mountain roared vengeance, but could not catch lean wolves melting into reeds. Word raced north. Robb Stark, the young wolf, led daring raids that saved hundreds. Songs sprouted in river markets, praising the heir of Winterfell. Each verse gnawed at Lannister pride. Within Moat Caelan's command tent, Jon pinned a new report. Lannister outriders skirmished near the twins, perhaps testing Frey loyalty. Lord Walder sent ambiguous ravens. Old Frey sits on a bridge like a spider, Arya muttered, reading over Jon's shoulder. Hell squeeze every fly for toll. We expect it, Jon replied. What matters is keeping the causeway impassable. A horn sounded outside. Low, thrumming. Jon and Arya emerged into mist where marshfolk guides approached with a captive, ragged southern scout bound in reed rope. Jon questioned him under watchful torches. The man spoke of Tywin's plan to send a vanguard up the causeway once autumn frost hardened the bog. A month, maybe two, the prisoner gasped. Jon dismissed him to the stocks. He turned to Arya. We must flood the southern paths before first frost. Sunken stakes, baited traps. If they march, they bleed. Arya's lips curved. Let them march blind. Autumn came swift. Northern winds sighing through reeds turned chill. Frogs fell silent. Jon's men collapsed beaver dams upstream, swelling water until low stretches swallowed under brackish waves. Camouflaged palisades bristled with sharpened stakes. When frost glazed shallows overnight, Jon ordered kettle drums sounded. Signals to marsh clans to move deeper into secret channels and ready fire ships of tarred reeds. One mist-veiled dawn, Lannister banners appeared on the southern ridge, crimson and gold rippling over spear points. Trumpets brayed, but the vanguard's first rank splashed into water deeper than waist-high, bottomless muck sucking armored feet. Arrows hissed from willowy thickets, northern longshafts feathered bright white, fletching for ghostly dread. Cries echoed. Men flailed, drowning under their own steel. Jon watched through spyglass, face impassive. Arya stood beside him, hood shadowing fierce eyes. Shall we offer parley? She asked. Parley to a mountain? No. But we'll send survivors south with tales. Jon lowered glass. Let them know the neck belongs to wolves. Evening fires crackled outside the command tent. Inside, Jon scribbled a missive to Ned, recounting victory, losses minimal, spirits high. Arya leaned against the table, nibbling dried apple. You're becoming a general, she observed. Jon's quill paused. I'm learning necessity. So you'll trade ledger ink for blood forever? Not forever. When peace is forged. Jon sealed the scroll with dark wax. But the forge is hot now, and iron must bend. Arya watched him apply the direwolf stamp. When the wars are done, what then? We rule Winterfell, raise pup cubs. A flush warmed Jon's cheeks. If the gods allow. He met her gaze. Would that displease you? She swallowed apple piece. No, but I'd rather our cubs roam free than sit on cushioned chairs. They should know forests, rivers, sword grips. Jon smiled softly. They will. And they will know you as mother who swings needle sharper than any fear. She laughed, but moisture glittered in her eyes. She covered it with bravado. And you as father who brokers peace with dragons. Jon's smile faded to contemplation. If dragons answer my blood, I must guide them. Not rule through fear, but through flame tempered by ice. A dragon of winter, Arya murmured. Perhaps. Jon opened the tent flap, letting cold air extinguish the candle between them. Outside, dairy wolves howled across marsh. Two voices rose, Host's eerie wail, Nymeria's bold cry, braided through night like twin strands of fate. Back in Winterfell, a different battle raged, one of patience and perseverance. Bran labored with master blacksmith Mikken to refine the saddle design that allowed him to ride Dancer, a quick little filly with dappled gray coat. Day after day he practiced balance, using core muscles newly forged by Maester's exercises. One crisp morning, Bran guided Dancer around the courtyard, wooden lance in hand. Hodor jogged alongside, ready to catch him, yet Bran stayed seated, spine straight. Sansa watched, embroidery forgotten in lap. Pride lit her features. As Bran completed a circuit, "Well ridden, little brother," Bran grinned. "I'll ride patrol before winter snows, you'll see." Sansa approached. "When you do, take care. The world beyond these walls changes swiftly." Bran sobered. "I feel it, as if the weirwood whispers of storms." Sansa's hand brushed his arm. "Then hold to hope. Songs say true hearts survive darkest nights. Sometimes songs lie." Bran's smile returned, though tinged by knowledge. "But I'll sing one where they don't." Catelyn ventured into the Godswood alone one evening, drawn by restless longing. The heart tree's face glowed pale in moonlight, tears of sap glinting crimson. She knelt upon moss, breath forming ghosts. "Old gods, forgive me," she whispered. "Forgive my hardness. Grant me grace to love the boy my lord calls son Tyner." She pressed a palm to the white bark, rough and cold. "Guide Robb's sword. Steady Jon's heart. Guard Arya's courage. Spare Ned the grief of losing any child." Leaves rustled though no wind stirred. Catelyn closed her eyes, and in the silence felt something unspoken. Not absolution, but acknowledgement. The old gods bore witness, and that was enough. When she rose, she found Sansa waiting by the mossy bridge, candle in hand. "Mother," the girl said softly. "Shall I walk you back?" Catelyn nodded, tucking errant strand behind Sansa's ear. Together they walked through shadows, and though neither spoke further, their interlaced fingers bridged another fracture healed. Far to the south, within King's Landing, Varys spun webs of rumor. One strand reached Shae, who whispered to Bronn, who carried word to Tyrion Lannister, newly arrived to mediate between council factions. Tyrion read it by lamplight. Jon Stark had routed a Lannister vanguard in the neck. He tapped the parchment, mind racing. "This nephew of Eddard grows troublesome." Cersei sneered across the council table next morning. Grand Maester Pycelle wheezed. "My queen, perhaps negotiation." "Negotiation?" she snapped. "He murdered my scouts." Tyrion sipped wine. "Scouts who trespassed northern territory, sister. Wolves guard their snow." Cersei's lips pressed thin. "Father will answer. The North cannot remain independent with dragon blood." Tyrion's gaze flicked to Littlefinger, whose sly grin betrayed interest. "Indeed. Though I wonder, dear sister, if stamping out every spark leaves any torches to light our own way." He set the goblet down. "I propose we send a raven to Stark, demand parley. While we talk, we probe for weakness." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "Are you counseling peace?" "Peace is a mask," Tyrion replied. "Behind it we might conjure victory at lesser cost." The queen considered. "Very well. Draft your letter." Tyrion inclined head, though his mind wandered to stories of a wolf, raised among dragons, and a young girl with a needle. Intrigue seldom lacked flavor. Time advanced. Leaves shriveled. Flurries dusted moats. At Moat Cailin, Jon and Arya received Tyrion's raven carried by soaked courier. Jon read the missive by torchglow. "Lord Stark. Her Grace Queen Regent Cersei Lannister proposes a council in River Run to discuss cessation of hostilities and assure the safety of all heirs." You are invited as representative of northern interests, accompanied by an escort not exceeding 10 knights. Signed, Tyrion Lannister, acting hand. Jon shared the words with Arya, then penned reply to Ned. That night, as campfire crackled, Arya voiced what weighed upon them both. It's a trap. Possibly, Jon conceded. But declining appears weakness. Father should not go, nor Robb. Then I must. He stared into flames. Dragons and wolves must show their faces. If I survive, Parley Stall's enemy buys Robb time. And if you don't survive? She tried to keep voice steady, but the flicker revealed fear. Then you will defend the north, Jon answered gently. You, Robb, Bran, Sansa. No. Arya grabbed his arm. We'll attend together. Jon hesitated. If something happens to us both, better to share fate than leave one to mourn. She released him, gaze fierce. Besides, I can slip blades where knights see none. He managed a wry smile. So be it. 10 escorts. Ghost, Nymeria. And the hope the 7 aren't as blind as rumors claim. Arya leaned shoulder against his. The old gods watch. Above them, direwolves wolves howled under frosty moon, and across swamp water rippled thin ice like cracked glass. Robb received Joan's letter by Crow, just as his outriders returned with word of Edmure's victory at Pink Maiden, but grave losses. Gregor still roamed, but Tywin remained stalled behind Harrenhal's molten towers. Robb weighed risk. Ride to River Run with elite guard or trust Jon alone. He looked to Grey Wind, pacing restless. We cannot yield this chance, Robb murmured, stroking the direwolf's ear. If they spill my brother's blood while I pinch swords here, I'll never forgive myself. He summoned bannermen. The war council convened under canvas roof. Rain drumming. Lords argued until clash of opinions rang louder than storm. At last, Robb pounded table. I marched to River Run with 200 picked men. The rest maintained pressure on Lannister supply routes. He met each lord's eyes. This is not retreat. It's shield. Blackfish Tully saluted. I'll guard your flanks, boy. Winterfell's courtyard bustled. Porters loading gift baskets of northern fare for Ned's journey to River Run. Bran objected to being left behind, but Ned insisted 2 wolves away from the den were enough. Sansa promised to keep Catelyn company and continue teaching Rickon letters. On departure morning, Catelyn placed a wolf's tooth token around Ned's neck. For luck, she whispered. Your love is luck, he answered. Jon arrived from the neck, Arya at his side, both travel-worn but resolute. Ned embraced them. The road ahead is treacherous. Keep eyes wide. We will, Jon assured. And if Parley spirals into danger, flee. Ned's voice lowered. Words seldom slay, but swords summoned by words do. Arya gripped needle. I prefer swords in open. Ned smiled despite worry. Your mother would say you prefer chaos. Chaos is just a ladder, Arya quipped, eyebrow arching. Ned blinked. Where did you hear that? Nowhere, she said innocently, though Sansa laughed behind gloved hand. The River Run meeting unfurled under skies bruised violet with low clouds. Lannister pavilions stood apart from Stark banners across a meadow still scarred by raiders' hoofprints. A wide tent rose between, neutral ground. On appointed morning, Jon rode in procession, Ghost stalking near stirrup, Arya cloaked in deep gray. Ned flanked him, Robb beside, Grey Wind echoing Ghost's silent vigilance. The rest of their escort formed a column of steel, glinting like frost. Opposite, Tyrion awaited atop a dappled palfrey. Beside him, Sir Kevan Lannister kept stoic demeanor. No Cersei, no Tywin. An olive branch of sorts, or a dagger disguised as quill. Inside the tent, long tables separated rivals. To Jon's mild surprise, Maester Pycelle and Grand Maester Gorman Peake of Old Town attended, symbolizing scholarly neutrality. Tyrion rose. Welcome, Lords of Winter. Shall we parley? Ned inclined. Speak plainly. Tyrion produced scrolls. Queen Regent offers terms. The North recognizes crown authority. In return, Jon Stark is confirmed legitimate, Arya Stark's betrothal upheld, northern taxes reduced for 7 years, and Riverlands compensated for raids. Jon leaned forward. And what of Lannister aggression? Gregor Clegane's butchery? House Lannister disavows rogue actions, Tyrion said smoothly. Sir Gregor acted beyond orders. He will be summoned to face judgment. Arya laughed, the sound sharp. Clegane summoned like a lapdog. Some dogs bite handlers, Tyrion admitted. But even dogs fear bigger lions. Robb's knuckles whitened. What prevents Tywin from unleashing the dog again once we disband? Mutual distrust, Tyrion whispered wryly. We both know war bleeds gold faster than miners dig. Better to pause blades while tempers cool. Ned studied the dwarf. And what does the hand of the king desire personally? A knight without daggers at my spine. Tyrion's eyes glinted. Failing that, I desire truth. There are rumors of royal bastardy more damning than your nephew's birthright. Silence rippled. Even banners outside seemed to still. Bring evidence, Ned said, voice low but fraught. I search. Tyrion bowed his head. Yet evidence hides behind red cloaks. Jon exchanged glance with Ned. A shared recognition of undercurrents deeper than any treaty. Tyrion pushed parchment across table. Sign these, and the realm sighs in relief. Decline and swords measure our worth. Ned's fingers rested upon the parchment, pulse thrumming. Jon felt eyes upon him. From Arya, from Robb, from lords whose houses would bleed at his nod. He inhaled. These terms are flattering, Jon began. But they hinge upon trust unearned. He stood. We will consider, but first, reparations, Clegane's head on a spike. Then we speak of taxes. Tyrion's expression tightened but remained cordial. My sister will not relish that demand. Then she may relish war. Jon bowed minutely. Parley concluded. They exited under tense silence. Outside rain began to fall. Soft at first, then heavy sheets drumming canvas. Ned grasped Jon's arm. You carried the room. Jon exhaled. I hope I didn't doom it. That night in Riverrun's guest turret, Jon paced. Arya leaned by arrow slit, watching rain cascade. Do you regret refusal? She asked. I regret blood shed to reach this crossroads. He stopped. But Tywin tests weakness. A signed parchment without justice invites future slaughter. Arya crossed room, wrapped arms around his waist. He stiffened, then relaxed. Whatever war comes. She murmured. We fight it together. He rested chin atop her head, hair damp from rain. Together. Morning broke gray and unforgiving. A raven arrived from King's Landing, sealed in wax, bearing Baratheon's stag. Ned opened it at breakfast table. Robert was dead, gored by boar during hunt. Joffrey proclaimed king. Cersei crowned regent. Silence fell like an ice sheet. Robb's spoon clattered. Jon's heart hammered. Ned crushed parchment. The realm caves into chaos. Our parley is dust. Arya's fingers gripped cup. Did Cersei orchestrate? Likely, Ned whispered. Robert stood between her and throne. Robb slammed fist. This means war. War came the moment Robert left Winterfell, Jon said. Voice hollow. Now it bears teeth. Ned stood. Riverrun is no longer safe. We ride north. But horns blared outside. Lannister calls. Scouts burst in. Tywin's full host advanced under dawn fog. Ziga towers rose beyond tree line. Banners of lion and red cloaks spilled across fields. Too late, Jon muttered. He faced Arya. Go to horses. Ride for the neck at once. No, she hissed. We fight. Listen. Steel clanged. Cries echoed. Ned drew ice, its great blade whispering through air. We hold long enough for Robb's outriders to break south flank, open escape lane. Robb strapped helm. Gray wind and I cut path. Jon gripped his cousin's arm. Do not die, brother. Not this day. Robb grinned like a young wolf, tasting first kill. They descended spiraling stairs into chaos. Courtyards churned with melee as Lannister vanguard breached gatehouse. Rain turned earth to slick mud, boots slipping. Gray wind barreled through gap, tearing a soldier's throat. Robb followed in a flash of flashing steel. Ned rallied river knights, forming shield wall before inner keep. Jon guided Arya to stables. Nymeria snarled, fangs bared. "You ride," Jon urged. Arya shook head. "Together. Remember?" He hesitated. Her eyes burned with promise beyond any vow. He nodded. They mounted side by side. Jon atop a black courser, Arya on swift chestnut. Ghost and Nymeria flanked. They charged through postern gate into storm-lashed field, banners whipping. Jon cut down a crossbowman. Arya hamstrung a pikeman with needles darting kiss. They reached Robb, who hacked at enemy flank. The three Starks formed spear point, direwolves slashing alongside. With combined fury they drove wedge through Lannister lines. In that whirlwind, Jon glimpsed Tyrion astride a horse, pleading with crossbowmen to cease. A stray bolt struck his helm, knocking him senseless. Jon wheeled, but saw Sir Kevan drag the dwarf to safety. Ahead, the path to North Road opened. Serpents recoiling from wolf jaws. Ned's horn sounded. Retreat call. Stark levies withdrew in disciplined columns behind shield wall, as archers covered them with gray-fletched arrows. Riverrun's gates fell behind them, flames licking timbers. Yet the Starks escaped into driving rain, hearts pounding. Banners tattered, but unbowed. Night cloaked their flight. Campfires guttered under soaked cloaks. Ned convened council in forest clearing, lit by single lantern. "Robert dead, Joffrey crowned," he summarized. "Baratheon line poisoned by Lannister blood. Stannis will claim throne. Renly might too. The realm fractures." "Ow." Robb, cloak dripping, leaned on sword. "And Tywin marches north. We cannot run forever." "We don't," Jon said. "We lure Lannisters into next jaws. Marsh will bleed them. While they sink, Stannis rises, fracturing their rear." Ned rubbed beard. "We become hammer, Marsh the anvil." He looked at Arya. "Your knowledge of swamp channels, can you guide an army unseen?" She straightened. "I can. Cranning men taught me paths even birds avoid." "Then it is decided." Ned's gaze swept them. "We ride to Moat Cailin, prepare last stand. If we hold the neck, North survives." And Jon, "Yes, father. War makes leaders, but peace will need kings." He placed a hand on Jon's shoulder. "Live. For all our sakes." Jon met his eyes, emotions roiling. "I will." Rain eased. Clouds parted enough for moonlight to silver wet leaves. A hush settled, tense, fragile. Deep within Lannisport, Viserys Targaryen disembarked from Lyseni galley, flanked by Braavosi Sellswords. He gazed upon distant rock, torches glittering like embers. "The lions fight wolves," he murmured. "And dragons descend." Silk cloak billowed as he strode. Behind him, Illyrio's envoys exchanged wary glances. In Viserys' violet eyes, madness and destiny danced. At the wall, cold winds sharpened, white ravens flew south. Winter had come, and in Winterfell's Godswood, Bran dreamed beneath the heart tree. He saw Jon cloaked in flames that did not burn, Arya riding a wolf made of starlight, Robb crowned by ghostly northern kings, and above them all, a red comet splitting night sky. A blade of fire aimed at worlds unknown. Bran woke with a gasp, knowing the dream was not a mere fancy, but a whisper of things yet to pass. He swung trembling legs over bed, calling for ink. The story unfolding across vale and valley would not end in 5 hours or 5 winters. It would span lifetimes, forged in the union of ice and fire, stone and story, blood and promise. Somewhere beyond earshot, a lone direwolf howled. A lullaby for the living and a requiem for the dead yet to fall. K. Snow streamed from a leaden sky in thick, relentless curtains, veiling the world in shifting white that muffled every hoofbeat, every breathing man, every clank of iron. The North had truly gathered its strength at last, and winter poured over the marshlands like an invading host of its own. Indifferent, unstoppable, lethal to those who failed to understand its moods. Tywin Lannister understood many things, but not the next treacherous winters. His supply officers cursed frozen wagons. His knights cursed sodden gambesons turning to plates of ice beneath gilded mail, and his sellswords lured by gold now whispered of desertion. For what good was coin when fingers blackened with frostbite before they could count it? Atop a low rise of gray rock, glazed by rime, Jon Stark surveyed the enemy lines through slits of his wolf fur hood. Ghost, fur speckled with drifting flakes, stood rigid at his side, nose twitching toward distant scents of fear. The dire wolf's red eyes glowed with an almost supernatural brilliance against the blank tundra. Jon's own eyes, steel gray like storm waves, settled upon a line of crimson banners sagging under ice. Each gust rattled them as though the lions were shivering. He tasted the wind, felt how it sliced through layered leather and wool, and let the cold sharpen his focus into a keen edge. Below, Lannister outriders probed the partially frozen causeway, horses stumbling as hidden holes yawned beneath a crust too thin to bear weight. The first scream rose when a destrier's foreleg punched through and shattered. Rider and mount plunged into a churning slush of shards and mud, swallowed by darkness masked in white. Jon watched without blinking. The neck was defending itself now. All his careful engineering, collapsed beaver dams, sluiced channels, staked pits disguised under snow, meant little next to the savage impartiality of the season. Winter was the greatest ally of House Stark. Arya slid up beside him, lithe as a shadow in her mottled cloak. Specks of ice clung to her lashes, but her gaze burned bright. Their scouts report a safe ford 2 leagues west. She murmured. I found it, dead horse, broken axles, frozen corpses. It isn't a ford any longer. How many bodies? Jon asked. 6, plus 2 dogs, she said. The water undercuts the bank now. Anyone who tries to cross will vanish beneath shelf ice. Nandawai. Jon nodded, jaw set. Good. They'll search east next. Ready the Crannog net. Arya grinned wolfishly and darted away, snow swallowing her footfalls. Nymeria, heavy-furred and fearsome, rose from behind a drooping pine and padded after her mistress with silent confidence. Their passing left no mark but a faint disturbance across the new-fallen snow. Minutes later, Jon gave his signal. A single raven cry whistle. From the mists of snow and steam beyond the ridge, torches flared along hidden ramparts. Short-lived points of flame hurled into tar-soaked driftwood rafts. The rafts slid forward along narrow channels cut specially for this moment, guided by poles in the hands of crannogmen concealed under woven grass mats. When they reached the unsuspecting Lannister flank, oil-fueled fire leapt to life. An orange wall howled upward, turning frost to scalding mist. Horses reared, men shrieked. Then the snow at their feet collapsed into the flooded trench Jon had ordered dug in secret, and screams gurgled into silence. Jon lowered his spyglass. One skirmish among hundreds, but every drop of gold lion blood spilled here carved fear deeper into Tywin's heart. Sooner or later, the great lion would have to choose. Press forward through slaughter and starvation, or fall back with what pride remained. He turned away from the ridge to the command post, tucked in a cluster of spruce. Ned stood near the fire pit, studying a crude map painted in pig's blood upon stretched hide, his grizzled face grim yet strangely peaceful, as though war, dreadful though it was, offered the surety of honest action. A swirl of steam ghosted from his cloak as he glanced up at Jon. Another probe? Ned asked. Broken, Jon replied. They lost 2 score at the trench. Our losses? None. Ned exhaled, watching his breath curl. Every day they bleed here buys Robb a week along the rivers. Ghost padded closer, muzzle brushing Ned's hand. The Lord scratched behind the wolf's ear, absently while staring at the hide map. If Tywin withdraws, he'll strike at the twins to turn Frey traitor. If he doesn't, he dies here. Ned's voice was calm, each word sliding into place like stones in a wall. Either way, we must be ready. Jon studied lines inked across the pig hide. Robb sends word. Edmure holds Pink Maiden, but can't relieve Riverrun. Lancel leads a smaller host harassing Padmern and Maidenpool, perhaps to distract us. Distractions lead to slaughter when the main host starves, Ned said. Winter is our ally. We must not squander her. He looked at Jon, and after a quiet moment added, Nor must I squander my son. Jon's cheeks colored in fire glow. Uncle. Father. He rarely used the second term. It tasted new each time. I know the risks. And I know your worth, Ned said simply. See that you survive this night. The realm will need you long after old wolves like me are songs and dust. The camp settled under deepening dusk. Above the distant cries of ravens and the occasional twang of bowstrings, Arya's laughter drifted across glinting snowbanks as she returned from patrol. Jon found her standing beside the mess fire where men dunked chunks of salt pork into thick onion broth. Steam haloed her head, strands of dark hair curling across her brow. She offered him a bowl. He took it, swallowing broth so hot it scorched tongue and throat, welcome pain amid the chill. Crannog net worked? She asked between bites. Better than I hoped, he said. Maybe Tywin will think the marsh itself alive with magic. Arya's eyes danced. We should spread rumors that the old gods have stirred bog wraiths. We don't need wraiths, Jon answered. Ice and patience are spirits enough. A hush fell. They listened to snow crackle under stray sparks, and watched sparks ascend into starless black. After a time, Arya spoke softly. What happens when the war ends? Do we still marry? The question held no reluctance now, only curiosity. Jon met her gaze. If you wish it. Our father meant unity, not chains. I value that. I wish us to choose our path, not follow old songs, she said. But she hesitated, cheeks warming. I cannot imagine home without you. Jon's heartbeat quickened. He rested a gloved hand over hers where it gripped the bowl. We will stand together when peace comes. Arya nodded. Small smile curving her lips, then slipped free to ladle more broth. In that moment Jon understood. War-forged bonds iron cannot match, welding hearts under heat of uncertainty. Whatever title the realm might lay upon him. Lord of Winterfell, Prince of the North, Dragonblood heir, none mattered as much as the silent vow in their shared eyes. The next morning dawned brittle and clear. A white sun, pale as bone, hovered low, casting shallow shadows across frozen pools. In the Lannister camp, soldiers stumbled about stiff-legged, breaking ice from armor buckles. Tywin Lannister walked among them, wrapped in a heavy sable cloak, surveying carnage. Wagons overturned, axles cracked from cold, half-frozen corpses stacked for pyres that would never burn hot enough. He paused by a line of gaunt horses being slaughtered for meat. Each shriek raked his nerves, but he showed no sign outwardly. Sir Kevan approached. Our foragers found only frozen cattail and thin rabbits. Salt stores spoil. The men grow restless. Restlessness I can quell, Tywin said. Hunger is harder. We dismantle half the wagons, repurpose wood for fires. His voice was granite. Any sellsword found hoarding bread loses a hand. Sir Kevan swallowed. Word from Harrenhal. Stannis sails on King's Landing. They say the city prepares for siege. Let the capital fret. Tywin's pale green eyes narrowed. We hold the north and starve the wolves into surrender. Once Jon Stark bends, we march south and sweep aside Baratheon's ragged fleet. And if the neck devours us first? Tywin turned, cloak swirling like a shadow. Winter kills wolves too. We last longer than they. Remember that. Ben? Yet even as he spoke, distant horns sounded. Low, doomful notes echoing across marsh. His jaw tightened. They signaled another ambush. Somewhere out in the whiteness, men of House Lannister were dying again, and each death weighed heavier than a tower of gold. While Tywin stewed, ravens flapped from the Eyrie bearing news to Winterfell. Catelyn stood in the rookery with Maester Luwin as parchment after parchment unraveled horrors. Robert's death confirmed. Joffrey's coronation overshadowed by rumors of incest. Stannis proclaiming himself rightful king. Renly gathering reach armies. High Septon found poisoned. Chaos threading through every corner of Westeros. Bran wheeled his custom saddle into the chamber atop Hodor's wide shoulders. He listened quietly, eyes enormous. "What of Daenerys Targaryen?" Bran asked when Luwin paused. Catelyn frowned. "The dragon princess across the sea? She vanished from whispers months ago." "Daenerys. Maybe her dragons hid under winter snows," Bran murmured. "Dreams show three heads breathing fire over black ice." Catelyn exchanged worried glance with Luwin. "Your dreams grow dark, my child." "They grow true," Bran said. "Father rides through storm while lions drown. A golden man with half a face rises from seashell thrones. And a white walker treads southern fields where roses once bloomed." Luwin placed gentle hand on Bran's shoulder. "Dreams can mislead. Focus on lessons, lad. Nande." Bran only looked through him, seeing vistas no maester's lamp could illuminate. The Starks and Tully's battered column reached Moat Caelin's northern bastion by dusk 5 days later. Boreal wind whistled through arrow slits as Ned dismounted, joints aching. Guards carried torches to guide survivors along slippery planks. Robb had remained south to harry Lannister stragglers, but Jon and Arya preceded the column by mere hours, their defense lines already drawn deeper within the shattered towers. Catelyn's raven awaited Ned at Council Hall. Snowstorms swallow White Harbor roads. Manderley fleet cannot sail. The wall sends word of queer lights beyond frost fangs and dead things moving beneath moon. "Beware!" Ned read it thrice. The wars of men might soon pale to specters, marching out of myth. He thought of Benjen lost beyond the wall, and felt a chill that no hearth could dispel. In the great tower's upper chamber, he gathered Jon, Arya, Sir Roderick, Jorah Mormont, Marsh Chieftain Howland Reed, and Maester Luwin, brought by fast horse, his frail body bundled in furs. The table was littered with bone-carved dominoes marking troop placements. Candles guttered in fierce drafts. "Tywin's host numbers less than half what he began with," Jon reported. "But he entrenched 3 leagues south on any ground still solid. He intends to outlast us," Jorah said. "Hope winter breaks him first." Ned shook his head. "Lannister gold buys endurance. We need a stroke that severs the snakehead." Howland Reed leaned in, his eyes moss green, voice quiet as rustle of reeds. "I know a path beneath the bogs, old as the children. It leads under his siege lines, emerges near their command pavilion." "Now." Arya straightened. "A tunnel? How secure?" "Secure for those small and silent," Reed said. "A host cannot traverse, but a handful might slither serpentwise." Jon's heartbeat quickened. "A strike at Tywin himself. Remove the commander and the army rots," Ned mused. But caution shadowed his expression. "Yet if we fail, we forfeit honor." "Honor weighs less than survival," Arya said. "Let me lead. I can move unseen." "Too great a peril," Ned began, but Jon cut in. "Father, this is chance fate hands us. Let us seize it." Jon's eyes locked on Ned's. "I will go. Arya's blade is swift, mine is sure, and Howland knows the way." Ned closed eyes briefly. "Hells take me." "Very well. 3 may travel. Howland Reed to guide, Arya for stealth, Jon to strike. Ghost and Nymeria, if the passage allows." "It does," Reed confirmed. Sir Roderick blew out breath. "If the commander dies, the host may still fight like cornered bears." "We'll be ready," Ned said. "Roderick, muster archers along Eastern Causeway. Jorah, station cavalry north of Lake. When their lines break, hammer them." The meeting adjourned. Ned pulled Jon aside beneath arch of frost-rimmed stone. "I give you ice," he said, presenting the 2-handed Valyrian blade. "A king's weapon." Jon hesitated. "It is yours." "It is Winterfell's," Ned corrected. "You wield it now." Jon accepted the weight, iron black glittering in lamplight. He dropped to one knee. I will not fail you. Ned lifted his chin. You are my son, and I love you. Go with the old gods. Arya appeared, needle already belted, expression fierce. And the new gods, she added, will need every blessing. That night, beneath one storm-shy moon, 3 figures slipped through a crevice at the moat's base. Jon first, then Arya, then Howland with a bundle of dried torch reeds. Ghost padded at Jon's side. Nymeria followed, head low. The passage was a forgotten root tunnel, once carved by water, now half-choked with tangled vines that still clung to some secret memory of life. Luminous lichen lit patches like fallen stars. Their breath plumed, swirling among hanging icicles. Hours passed in silence, broken only by drip of meltwater. At last Reed halted, pressing finger to lips. A faint glow ahead. Lamplight filtered through Reed's screen. Beyond the screen lay an abandoned boathouse on the edge of the frozen lake, converted by Lannister engineers into a supply shed. Stacked crates muffled outside voices. Reed peeled a narrow gap. Through it, they saw Tywin's pavilion less than 200 paces across flat, wind-swept ground, torches sputtering. Snow devils danced between tents and makeshift palisade. Red-cloaked guards paced, hunched against cold. Jon drew Ghost close, whispering soft, high Valyrian. The direwolf's ears twitched. He slunk into the shadows, Nymeria at his heels. Arya smirked. Loose the hounds. They waited 10 heartbeats. Then sudden snarls erupted beyond the palisade. Wolf cries rending night. Guards shouted, rushing toward chaos at north perimeter. Jon motioned. He and Arya slipped from the boathouse, crossing the open field in crouching strides, Howland behind. Snow hissed under boots. Wind howled across lake ice. They reached the pavilion's rear flap as a second wave of screams rose, no longer startled, but mortal pain. Wolf shadows lunged past torchlight, blood trailing in arcs across snow. Jon pushed inside. Tywin stood alone before a campaign table, armored but unhelmed, studying tokens. He looked up, expression a mixture of surprise and contempt. So the bastard comes, Tywin said. In the dead of night like a bandit. Jon drew ice. Black steel sighed. Your war ends here. Tywin's eyes flicked to Arya brandishing needle behind Jon. He shook his head almost sadly. Stark honor slain at last. Honor dies each time you burn innocence, Arya hissed. Tywin's mouth tightened. We are all innocents until war finds us. He drew a longsword from scabbard, leaning against the table. Valyrian steel glimmer, bright roar, lost. No, a castle-forged replacement, yet lethal. Come then. Let us see which blood answers the snow. Jon met his charge. Blades clashed, sparks flying. Tywin's strokes were heavy, measured, years of campaigns lending ruthless efficiency. Jon's were fluid, shifting between knightly forms and wild instinct, reluctant as tide. They circled lamplight while Arya guarded entrance, needle flicking at any intruder who dared thrust head inside. Howland remained at crack of canvas, short spear poised. Ice hummed through Tywin's parry, shattering his counterguard. Jon pivoted, carving shallow line across lion-embossed breastplate. Tywin grunted, swung overhead. Jon blocked, arm numb. They broke, breaths steaming. You could rule the realm, Tywin rasped. Bend knee, take Casterly gold, and spare yours. Jon answered with silence and a swift riposte that knocked Tywin's sword high. He dove low, slashing hamstring. Steel bit chain, sliced flesh. Tywin staggered. Jon rose, crosscut across chest. Bright blood spattered maps and parchment plans. Ice paused inches from Tywin's throat. Spare me, Tywin gasped. End war. They will follow my word. Jon's eyes flashed with memories of burned farms, broken children, river blood mixing with ash. Your word drowned at Pink Maiden. He drove ice forward. Tywin Lannister's head toppled from his shoulders, rolling across strategy maps to halt against a wine cask. Arya exhaled a trembling sigh. Howland whispered a prayer. Outside, Horns blared. Alarm. Ghost and Nymeria burst through flap, muzzles crimson. Howland, torch. Jon ordered. Reed splashed oil upon canvas walls. Sparked flint. Flames roared, devouring pavilion, devouring the headless corpse. The trio darted away into swirling snow, wolves leading. Behind them, Tywin's camp erupted in confusion. Commanders yelling, soldiers scrambling as orange glare sprouted skyward. Without the Lion Lord's iron grip, cohesion broke like brittle ice. Some fled south. Others fought one another in disputes quickly lethal. By dawn, the Lannister siege was no more. Archers on Moat Cailin's ramparts watched lions collapse like blighted wheat. Cavalry thundered out to cut down pockets of resistance. Those who surrendered were spared but stripped of arms. Sent trudging south under white banners of truce that fluttered weakly in rising storm. In the hall of Shattered Tower, Ned embraced Jon and Arya fiercely. "You've done what songs will call impossible," he said, voice husky. "The North is free." Jon clasped his father's arm. "The realm is still torn, but we live." Menachand. Ned looked upon his children, Robb dust-caked but triumphant. Bran watching from atop Hodor, Sansa weeping relief, Rickon clutching Shaggy Dog, and knew their ordeal was only entering a new phase. Freedom always demanded vigilance. Word of Tywin's death raced faster than any raven. At King's Landing, Cersei's shriek shattered decanters. Joffrey flung goblets, ordering executions of any northerner in the city. But his tantrums could not stem panic among courtiers, now whispering of cursed winter kings and a dragon blood heir, whose blade felled the Lion Patriarch. In Dragonstone's grim keep, Stannis Baratheon received the news with a curt nod. "The lion grows toothless," he said to Davos. "We strike before it regains fangs." His fleet weighed anchor within the week, black sails gliding across Slate Sea. Renly meanwhile crowned himself in Highgarden's fragrant courts, courting Tyrell puissance. He laughed when ravens brought news. Northerners do our work, but his smile faded as Tyrell stewards tallied Lannister debts now unpayable. In the Westerlands, Sir Kevan tried to salvage cohesion, naming Adam Marbrand Field Marshal. But bannermen argued over who should lead. Jaime still captive in Riverrun's deepest cell. Cersei's orders distant and erratic. Tyrion rumored dead until he limped into Lannisport with half his guard. Face scarred, eyes wild. Tyrion convened the remnants of his father's banners in the Great Hall, voice hard as iron. "We cannot wage 3 wars, against wolves, stags, and ourselves. We sue for peace, or we perish." Traditionalists howled treason. Tyrion's sellsword Bronn quietly replaced one dissenter's wine with hemlock. Debate ended. Back at Winterfell, celebration was muted by exhaustion. Huge fires blazed in courtyards, ale flowed, venison roasted. Yet each cheer carried undertone of mourning. For comrades felled in marsh, for innocence lost. Catelyn met Jon in Godswood 2 nights after his return. Snow dusted her auburn hair silver. "I have wronged you," she said, voice shaking. "I doubted. I resented. Yet you saved us all." Jon shook head. "You loved your family fiercely. That is no wrong." Catelyn's eyes glistened. "You are my family." She stepped forward and with hesitant grace, wrapped arms around him. His initial stiffness melted. He embraced her gently. Trees creaked as wind sighed, scattering snow like tiny blessings. When they parted, Catelyn smiled. A small, tentative curve. "The realm will ask more of you," she warned. Jon looked up at Hearttree's bloody eyes. "I will give what I can. The old gods guide my steps." The old gods seemed busiest with Bran. That same night he dreamt again. The red comet streaked heaven, but now it forked. One tail lashing toward King's Landing, the other toward distant east, where a mother of dragons stirred beneath desert stars. Beneath the wall of sleep he felt Ghost and Nymeria running endless snowfields, chasing shapes made of night glass and frostfire. He woke with name on lips, others, and chill like death in marrow. He sent Raven to Jon. The true war comes on dead feet. Prepare. Viserys Targaryen's attempt to raise banners in Westerlands ended abruptly when sellsword captains heard of Tywin's death and demanded triple pay. The beggar prince could not oblige. At a roadside inn near Castemir's ruins, he spat promises of fiery vengeance until a silent patron, face shadowed by hood, slid dagger between ribs. Viserys bled on dust floor, violet eyes wide with shock. The hooded man tossed 2 golden dragons on counter and vanished. Some said it was a faceless man hired by Illyrio to remove a liability. Others whispered Varys orchestrated to clear path for a more reasonable Targaryen claimant across the sea. Whoever dealt the blow, Westeros scarcely noticed. Winter storms choked ravines. Hungry wolves prowled highways. Farmers hoarded grain while drunken soldiers, freed from master's discipline, turned bandit beneath tattered lion banners. Yet not all chaos favored darkness. In White Harbor, Wyman Manderley assembled swift cogs, stocked with salted cod to run relief up coast. Bear Island longships under Lady Mage ferried sealskins to Winterfell to clothe the realm. And in Barrowton, Lady Dustin, once bitter foe of Stark, pledged half her harvest tithe to crippled Riverlands villages, ravaged by Tywin's raids. Outside politics of crowns, the North remembered its ancient oath. When winter comes, the pack must endure together. By candlelight deep in Winterfell's solar, Ned drafted a letter addressed to all lords of Westeros, great and small. I, Eddard Stark, Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, proclaim that the boy styling himself King Joffrey Baratheon is no true seed of Robert of House Baratheon, but born of incest most foul between Cersei of House Lannister and her brother Ser Jaime. The proof rests with me, and shall be revealed before the gods and the realm. I call upon honorable lords to cast aside false lions and restore rightful rule. Let Stannis of House Baratheon, true brother to the late king, stake his claim in open daylight. Judged by steel and conscience, the North will stand with justice, yet we claim our ancient right to govern ourselves, free of southern caprice. He paused, quill hovering. How would the realm answer? With arrows or oaths? He imagined Robert's ghost cursing, Lyanna weeping, Catelyn praying. Still, truth must out. Robb entered unbidden, taller now, leaner, scars along jaw. Father, Raven from Riverrun, the Blackfish says Edmure repels last of Gregor's men. Riverlands open. Ned nodded slow. Then South Road clears. But our war shifts shape. He handed the letter. Robb read, brow furrowing. You commit us to Stannis? I commit us to justice, Ned answered. Stannis is lawful heir. Yet his throne will not collar the North again. We choose our fealty freely, or stand apart. Robb eyed his father. And Jon? Jon stands for Winterfell. If the realm denies, we stand anyway. Robb smiled faintly. I'll drink to that. Jon walked ramparts where hoarfrost grew like silvery moss on stone. Arya joined, wrapping cloak around both their shoulders. Below, carpenters raised new palisades. Children chased each other across courtyard, their laughter echoing like bells. Wolves dozed near kennels, bellies full. Father drafts letters, Arya said. Politics returns. It never left, Jon replied, arm tightening. But we are wiser. 2 ravens circled overhead, landing upon Merlon. Their eyes shone black as jet. One bore ribbon of Night's Watch, the other ribbon of black without sigil. Jon unlaced the first scroll. To Lord Stark, Rangers slain at the Frostfangs. We fear the dead rise. Send aid. By my hand, Jeor Mormont. Nenderol. Arya read over his shoulder, brows knitting. Jon opened second scroll. Plain parchment, no signature. Fire alone will not stop them. Listen to the trees. Follow the wolf's dreams. A chill deeper than wind slid down his spine. He thought of Bran's warnings. Arya squeezed his arm. Another war. Jon nodded. The true war. He looked north, beyond invisible wall of horizon. Night rolled there, dark and patient. Ice may have vanquished lion, But something older stirred beyond mortal feuds. He turned to Arya. "We prepare." She smiled, fierce and unafraid. "Together." And in the quiet between snowflakes, the heart of Winterfell beat. Loud, steady, unbroken. Ah, Kai. Snow lay so thick upon Winterfell's outer walls that the crenellations blurred into one long white ridge, as if the castle had grown a fresh layer of bone. Cold moonlight slanted over the courtyard, silvering every nail and barrel hoop, while distant wolves answered one another across the frozen weald. Within the ancient granite keep, notched by countless winters yet still defiant, rushed currents of quiet movement and murmured intent. The North had survived the Lion's siege. Now it faced the long dark between wars, that uneasy stillness where old debts stir like sleepers waking from troubled dreams. Jon Stark strode the western rampart, ice sheathed across his broad back. Long hair lashed by wind, each breath crystallized before him, tiny ghosts vanishing into night. Below, stables clattered with the restless stamping of mounts too long confined. Torches guttered in iron brackets, thin flames pawing at the wind, yet seeming dwarfed by the furious stars above. He halted at the corner turret where Arya awaited, perched upon the parapet stone like a skinny snow owl, knees hugged to chest, needle resting across her lap. Nymeria dozed behind her, tail curled over paws. Ghost stood by Jon's side, silent sentinel, fur-bleached new moon white beneath the sky. "Any news from the east?" Arya asked without turning. Ravens still speak of Renly's pageant columns, bright as midsummer. "Stannis devours the king's fleet piece by piece, though storms slow him more than swords," Jon said. And from King's Landing, silence and smoke. Varys little birds chirp of famine on the streets. The common folk roast rat and mudlark. Yet Joffrey orders another gilded tourney to celebrate his own coronation. "Then?" Arya snorted, breath misting. "Let him feast on gold. It will taste like bile when winter smashes his gates." Jon rested elbows on Merlon, eyes tracking the sword-sharp edge of the horizon. They will never look north until too late. Their wars are a whirlpool, dragging every heart southward. Even the wall's ravens go ignored or doubted. She rose then, stretching stiff muscles. "Bran's letters chill me more than any frost. He says the dead ride. I keep hearing his words in my dreams." "Then know all." "So do I," Jon admitted. He glanced at her, quiet intensity in the lines of his face. Maester Luwin found accounts in dusty annals, tales of flare-white lights in woods, and ancient kings forging blades of dragon steel. Stories perhaps, yet Bran's visions grow detailed. "I trust the boy's gift, more than any dusty scribe." Arya's fingers drummed the quillons of needle. "I wish I could march beyond the wall tomorrow, carve truth from ice." "You may have that chance," Jon said, voice low. "Jorah Mormont begs men. Steel and dragon glass." Stannis requests parley with us at Shivering Shore. He claims he will grant ships, lend smiths, sanction a joint ranging northward. He wants our oath before he does. She raised eyebrows. Stannis Baratheon, appealing for help. That is a sour fruit. Sour, but hardy. The wall's garrison dwindles. If we do nothing, ghosts may walk among our fields come spring. Jon drew a breath that hissed through his teeth. Father means to ride and meet him within the fortnight. Arya stepped closer. Then we ride too. Father wants you here, to train garrison, to keep Sansa and Bran safe should foul tidings arise. Arya crossed her arms, jaw set. My place is at your side. Jon laid a hand on her shoulder. You are my sworn blade, whether miles apart or shoulder to shoulder. But Winterfell needs a wolf that bites when I am gone. She held his gaze, conflict warring in brown eyes. At last, she looked away, exhaling. The true war will not wait for me to play warden. It will wait for no one, Jon said. That is why we must divide our strength. He offered a faint, determined smile. Besides, someone must teach Sansa how to hold a spear. Arya's small grin returned. She already stabbed a burlap dummy through the eye last afternoon. Septa Mordain would faint if she could see. Jon clasped her forearm. Keep sharpening her. She will surprise the realm one day. Ghost nudged Arya's leg, as if in good-natured approval. She ruffled the direwolf's ears, then turned to stare northward, expression steel-sheened. At dawn 2 days later, Ned Stark summoned his household to the Great Hall. Smoke from peat-fed hearths curled among rafters, mingling with the scent of boiled turnip and elk sausages laid upon trencher boards. Lords Karstark, Umber, Glover, Manderley, Dustin, Risewell, and Tallheart lined the dais, furs trimmed with fox or marten. Catelyn sat beside Ned, fingers white-knuckled around a parchment, sealed with the sigil of the fiery heart over Stag. Bran, propped upon Hodor's shoulders, listened with keen eyes. Rickon perched cross-legged at Maester Luwin's side, plucking at the wolf-head button of his cloak. Sansa stood near the minstrel's gallery, posture delicate yet chin lifted. Ned rose, resting one palm on the hilt of a sword now belted at his hip. Valyrian steel half as wide as ice, but nearly as old, unearthed from Winterfell's crypt to serve him while Jon bore the ancestral blade. He surveyed his bannermen, his children, his wife, and began. Ravens from Eastwatch report whites attacking fishing hamlets along the shivering shore. Rangers vanish, leaving only red snow. The wall is undermanned. Lord Commander Mormont petitions every great house for aid. Most remain silent as winter stags. His voice carried iron certainty. The North will not stand silent. We recall the long night. We recall what it meant for man, woman, and child. We will not let shadows walk again. Murmurs rippled. Manderley stroked his beard, eyes narrowed. Great John Umber smacked fist to chest. Ay, the dead should stay dead. Ned raised hand. Stannis Baratheon, true heir by laws of realm, offers alliance. North and South join to confront the others. He sails north with shipwrights, obsidian from Dragonstone's cliffs, and his red priestess who claims fire god's favor. I will meet him upon the frozen coast to weigh this pact. Menchau. Lord Karstark folded arms. Stannis is Baratheon Southron kin. Why should we trust fiery gods and foreign priests? Because we need every blade, Ned said. And because legitimacy matters. A realm at war with itself cannot face darkness. He paused. I will take a host of 300. Knights, engineers, healers, blacksmiths. Jon commands, ice in hand. Ser Jorah Mormont, Lord Reed, and Hallis Mullen will ride with me. We depart on the morrow. Robb stepped forward from the ranks of lords, wearing boiled leather studded with iron. You should take me as well, he said. You must hold the neck, Ned replied. Your presence keeps our reclaimed borders secure. Robb inclined head, though disappointment shadowed blue eyes. The Blackfish, returned to Winterfell to heal an arrow graze, stood behind him, nodding approval. Sansa spoke then, voice clear. And I will accompany father to meet Queen Shireen. Ned blinked. Princess Shireen now, since Stannis names himself king. And you will remain. Your quills are sharper than any sword I wield. You will draft our letters, answer ravens, calm fears among vassals. There is strength in parchment, daughter. Sansa swallowed pride, then dipped her head. As you command, father. Arya scowled, but said nothing. Jon laid hand atop hers, quiet counsel. She wrestled down the protest, thrashing within. The next day, a pale sun glimmered behind rolling gray. When Ned's small host gathered beyond Winterfell's gatehouse. Horses stamped, warm breath bloomed from nostrils. Squires tightened girths, ravens cawed from cages strapped to pack mules. Jon helped his father mount the tall roan named Hearthguard. Brother, Ned whispered beneath fur cowl. Look to the wall through my eyes until I return. He clasped Jon's forearm. You will return, Jon said. The North is stubborn as the winter earth. Ned smiled faintly, then turned to Bran. Mind your studies. He kissed Catelyn's brow, murmuring words only she heard. Then he spurred Hearthguard and rode out, banners of stark gray and black fluttering behind, mingled with House Mormont's bear and Reed's bronze cranningman. Snow swallowed the column, and Winterfell's gate boomed shut. Jon watched until the last standard vanished into drifting white. A shiver of premonition brushed his spine, but resolve settled heavier. He descended the steps to the yard, Arya matching stride. "War Council in an hour," he told her. "Umber, Glover, and Reed's marsh lieutenants will draw new watch rotations along the eastwood. I want obsidian tips forged." Arya smirked. "Already told Mikken to melt the dragonglass from those Lannister goblets looted in the neck. He found crates full of ornament spikes. Said he'll pour them into arrow molds by nightfall." Jon chuckled despite gloom. "You think of everything. Everything they taught me." She corrected, "And more I teach myself." With that, she strode to the smithy, cloak snapping. 3 days later, word reached the castle that Renly Baratheon had fallen, murdered beneath his war tent, blood drained in circles of candle wax. Some blamed Stannis' Red Woman. Others whispered of shadow creatures. Highgarden knights, enraged and disillusioned, swore allegiance to the young stag's ghost. But Tyrell soon faced Lannister overtures for alliance by marriage to Marguerite. Joffrey's court sang hymns of victory. Stannis sailed on undeterred, leaving smoldering rumors in his wake. Jon absorbed these tidings in the solar where parchments leaf-piled across trestle tables. Troop counts, weather charts, outlines for refugee camps, should southern wars drive smallfolk north. He traced the bitumen smudges marking others' sightings. Scattered dots creeping south like slow creeper vines. Maester Luwin limped in, scroll in hand, face drawn. "More from the wall," he said, voice hushed. "Fist of the first men abandoned. Ring of corpses left as warning." He passed the parchment. Jon read. "Tracks vanish beyond Milkwater. The dead walk beneath half moon. Send fire." Jon pressed fingers along temples. "How many dragonglass daggers have we? 40 perhaps. 4,000 arrowheads if molds keep." Luwin's pupils flickered with fatigue. "Ironwood shafts still scarce. See the mill run non-stop," Jon said. "Offered double wages. Promise boar bacon when they finish 20 bundles." "Dan? Boar bacon," the maester echoed with faint smile. "A fine motivator." He departed, staff tapping. Jon pivoted to the window slit. Snow sifted thick as flour. In its swirling hush, he pictured the wall, immense and lonely, blue eyes glowing in its shadow. A memory rose. The day he first thought to ride north as a black brother. Then Ned's secret, his heritage, his survival. All roads had led him here, a crossroad of blood, ice, and uncertain fire. That evening, while candles smoked against drafty shutters, Sansa found Jon in the library, perusing Maester Marwyn's writings on wildfire. She carried a small cedar box. "I made this," she said, cheeks flushed by hearth heat. She opened the lid. A silk map she had embroidered, delicate yet precise. Blue wall, white plain, black pine lines marking suspected white paths. Tiny obsidian chips sewn to corners gleamed. Jon touched the edge. "You have a cartographer's hand." Bran described the dreamscapes. Master Wolkan taught me scale. She placed the map atop rolled vellum. "Take it when you ride." He studied her face, once soft and hopeful, now tempered by grief and fresh steel. "You see danger and craft order from it. Father was wise to entrust you with letters." Sansa managed a shy laugh. "I should have learned swords sooner, but we all fight in our ways." Jon folded the map carefully. "Thank you." He placed a gentle kiss on her brow, brotherly and solemn. "Your needle is no less deadly than Arya's, just kinder." Sansa's eyes shimmered. "Bring father home." "I will," he promised. Camps dotted the outer bailey. Smithy fires, fleece-lined tents for rivermen supporting Robb's returning outriders. Great John Umber, larger than any other 3 men, drilled halberdiers in snow up to their shins, bellowing praise and curses equally. Karstark archers strung new bows of weirwood fetched from the upper wolfswood. Lady Dustin oversaw tanner lines, ensuring wolf pelt cloaks issued to fresh recruits. In the rookery, Bran sat with Luwin, studying ravens. A glossy coal-black bird hopped onto his wrist. He murmured to it, unaware of Jon entering. "The bird says the frost deeper north burns like fire," Bran said matter-of-factly. Jon raised brow. "You speak Raven now?" Bran smiled. "Sometimes I feel thoughts not my own, like wings brushing inside my skull. They show me things, glimmers." He stroked the raven's neck. "Stannis meets father tonight. They feast on cold fish and hot pepper wine around blue flames." Jon's breath caught. "Blue flames? Dragonstone sorcery," Bran said. "The flames dance like spirits." "Father distrusts the red woman. She stares at ice like it's a prayer answered." Jon knelt to eye level with his brother. "Do your dreams show what happens next?" Bran's expression clouded. "Shadows coil, but father's heart burns bright. Wolf Star and Winter Rose." Jon ruffled Bran's hair gently. "Then we will trust his fire." He released a long breath. "Tell me if the ravens speak again." The wall loomed larger than tales as Ned's party approached Eastwatch. Men on the battlement shouted greeting. Heavy chains clattered, lowering a grated sally ramp across the frozen slit of harbored sea. Beyond, ice-rimmed water cracked with each swell. Stannis' galley, Fury of the Night, rode anchor among smaller cogs. Its black sails sagged under frost. The stag and hard banner drooped like a bloodied cloth. Ned dismounted, boots crunching crusted snow. A tall, stern man with jaw forested in salt-pepper beard strode down the gangplank. Stannis Baratheon, eyes hard as freshly cast iron. At his shoulder glided Melisandre, red silk, vivid amid monochrome world. "Lord Stark," Stannis greeted, voice hoarse from sea winds. "Winter's spite welcomes us." "King Stannis," Ned answered, "careful courtesy. We thank you for your haste." Melisandre's gaze lingered upon Ned, then swept to ice strapped across his back. Her lips shaped a hushed Valyrian prayer. Ned resisted chill crawling his spine. Inside the Eastwatch hall, they gathered round crab stew and mulled hippocras spiced with peppercorn and fiery saffron. Jeor Mormont joined, gaunt shoulders stooped under eagleskin cloak. Samwell Tarly, red-cheeked and heavy-set, hovered behind, clutching a satchel of parchments and black stones. Rime fell from cloaks, sizzling upon hearth. Stannis spread charts, lines marked in ash. Ghost guard posts fall each fortnight. Crasters keep silent. We found wildling villages razed, bones gnawed. Tracks show many feet, bare, clawed, unnatural. He stabbed a finger at the map. All. Here, at Frostfang Pass, dead rangers rose and slew brothers. They burn now, but ashes move in moonlight. Silent tension gripped the hall. Melisandre stepped forward, red eyes gleaming. The great other gathers his servants. Only the Lord of Light may banish darkness. Bend knee to his chosen king, and fire will cleanse night. Ned answered levelly. Fire and ice must join, but I bend knee to no red god, only to the realm's laws and my people's safety. Stannis' jaw worked. Then swear oath to me as rightful heir, and I swear steel, ships and fire to your cause. Together we drive back the night, then settle southern thrones. Ned considered. I will name you king before my bannermen if you recognize northern independence when threat is ended. Stannis barked a humorless laugh. Independence? After I bleed for your snows. Ned's eyes hardened to glacier gray. One war at a time. Fail to make peace with the north and you fight too. His hand rested upon ice pommel. You cannot spare men for another front. Silence. Mormont rapped knuckles on table. Why you squabble? The wall thins. Melisandre's gaze flickered like embers. The North's ancient gods are pale reflections of Arlor's flame. Yet blood sacrifices might. No sacrifices, Ned growled. Not of innocence. Stannis exhaled steam. Very well. Aid me, and should we survive, I will convene great council to honor the North's claim. Swear loyalty until the war beyond the wall ends. Ned extended hand. We lend sword and spear. We hold you to that counsel. Stannis gripped Ned's wrist. A firm, iron grasp sealing fragile accord. Samwell produced obsidian daggers bound in leather. "We found these at the Fist," he stammered. "Dragon glass kills them." "Saw it myself." Melisandre arched brows. "Stone of fire. Promising." Ned lifted a blade. Smooth black glass. Edge sharp as winter wind. He tucked it into belt. "We will make more." At Winterfell, snowstorm after snowstorm rolled south, each thicker than last. Robb oversaw grain rationing, his hair powdered white. Sansa managed letter exchanges with White Harbor and Bear Island, forging new supply alliances. Her quill danced diplomacy across parchment. Arya drilled recruits beneath flickering lanterns, teaching footwork on slick boards until ankles burned. Bran watched flurries swirl around the heart tree and whispered to unseen crows, coaxing glimpses of far-off glaciers, hearing faint howls in languages older than speech. One midnight, ravens burst overhead shrieking. Bran jolted awake in his chamber. He felt himself falling into the body of an eagle soaring the shadowed border of ice. He saw a host of whites approaching a remote wildling hamlet, white eyes blazing cobalt. At their center strode a tall figure clad in rime-black armor, etched like cracked glass, crown of icicles jutting inward. His spear radiated cold so intense that air crystals shattered into powder. Bran felt the figure's gaze spear through the eagle to his human soul. Terror jolted him awake. He summoned Maester Luwin and Sansa at once, recounting vision. Sansa shivered. "It must reach the wall tonight." She penned urgent message, sealing with direwolf wax. Luwin sent fastest raven, praying wind favored them. Along the coast, Ned stood with Stannis atop a ridge overlooking the shivering sea. Black water heaved chunks of ice. Snowflakes seethed in gale. Behind lay stag-bannered encampment, lit by red torches. Ahead, thickets of bare spruce hid watch scouts. Ned's hood flapped, voice strained against wind. 2 days' march will bring us to the gorge where Benjen vanished," he said. "We'll strike there, test these blades." Stannis nodded. "My smiths forge 1,000 arrowheads nightly, but we lack archers." "North has archers," Ned replied. "We'll send ravens." A horn blast echoed from Eastwatch's tower. 3 long, mournful notes. Mormont emerged from gatehouse, face blanched. "Riders," he barked. "Wildlings 100 at least, chased 2 brothers. Half dead." He fixed Ned with hollow eyes. "They say the Fist is lost." Without hesitation, Ned hurled orders. Lines of pikemen dashed to ramp. Healers prepared blankets and broth. Through swirling snow, 2 mounted figures hurtled. One horse gasping foam, its rider sagging. The second horse dragged a wounded brother across saddle. Gates yawned. Men poured out. Wounded were carried in. Ned met them in infirmary barracks, Stannis close behind. The survivor, rangy ranger named Dolorous Ed, humor now stripped raw, murmured fevered warnings. "They rise, my lord. Thousands, frost-encrusted giants, pale spiders big as hounds, and white mist that screams." Ned's mouth tightened. Stannis looked to Melisandre. Her red eyes burned with zealous excitement. "The night is dark and full of terrors," she whispered. Ned regarded her. "Let us make terrors of our own." Back at Winterfell, Jon studied Stannis' Raven confirming joint muster of North and Baratheon forces at the Wall's Shadow Tower within a fortnight. He gathered lords beneath the broken tower hall, newly roofed with thick pine planks. "We march in 10 days, he announced. 2,000 spears, 500 archers, 300 mounted. We leave garrison with Lord Robb and Lady Arya commanding." Murmurs rose. Some balked at a woman leading. Jon's gaze quelled them. "Arya Stark bled for this cause. Follow her orders or answer to ice upon my return." He let silence settle. Talhart asked, "How ride in this snow?" "Manderley cogs will ferry men to Eastwatch. The rest cross the King's Road in sled trains." "Reed guides path," Jon explained. Great John Umber slapped table. "We ride for death or glory. Either fills horn. So you shall have your fill," John said. That night he penned final letters. To Catelyn, reassurance. To Sansa, praise and trust. To Bran, promise of return. To Robb, brother's love. To Arya. He paused longest on hers before writing. "My heart rides with you even as my body travels north. Our vows bind stronger than steel. Guard our home, for it is the beacon guiding me through this dark." He sealed it with wolf and rose. When dawn broke 10 days hence, columns filed from Winterfell's snowy arms. Spearmen with mailed hoods rhymed stiff. Archers bearing quivers loaded with black glass. Horsemen wrapped in shaggy bison coats, helms masked by frost. Sleighs creaked under sacks of onions, rye, and salted venison. Drums rumbled slow cadence, hooves clopped muted by snow. Bran, atop Hodor, raised a carved weirwood rod in farewell. Sansa waved white mittens. Rickon tossed handfuls of pine cones after departing riders, chanting, "Bring the night fire!" Arya stood on the battlement, cloak swirling. She watched until Jon at column head lifted his sword in salute. He touched 2 fingers to lips, then to heart, then sky. She mirrored the gesture. Then he was swallowed by falling snow. She turned to Robb beside her. "Now the North watches us." He nodded, gray eyes glinting like distant steel. "And we must watch the North." Across the far side of Westeros, Tyrion Lannister discovered a sealed package in his late father's vault. Maps of ancient Valyria annotated in Tywin's neat script, and letters between maesters of the Citadel speculating about dragonglass veins under dragonstone identical to those beneath Valyria's smoking ruin. Father chasing rumors of weapons to match wildfire, Tyrion mused. He poured wine, mind racing. If dragonglass killed others, and Stannis controlled Dragonstone's minds, perhaps the war might pivot on shipments of black glass, not gold. He penned secret missives to White Harbor trade captains, offering Lannister debt bonds in exchange for safe passage north. The imp intended to hedge his family's survival on whichever side held off the dead. The march proved arduous beyond prediction. Sleet drove sideways. Horses broke legs on hidden ice shelves. Reed's marsh scouts led sled trains through half-frozen ponds disguised by snow crust. Twice they saved entire cohorts from drowning. Yet spirits remained high. Songs carried over gale. Great Joan's booming laughter startling crows from treetops. Nights. They camped in concentric circles. Outer ring of fires, bright orange dots upon desolate fields. Jon walked perimeter, ghost at heel, comforting soldiers with quiet nods. He bled his palm once nightly upon ice's edge, smearing crimson across sigil etched near guard. "For the living," he murmured. At Eastwatch Harbor, the arrival of Northmen spurred a frenzy. Carts rattled with obsidian crates, shipped from Dragonstone under Stannis banners. Barrels of lamp oil, pitch, and casks of sour Dornish wine for firebombs filled warehouses. Blacksmiths filed dragonglass arrowheads with sparks singing. The wall itself groaned under constant wind, ice cracking like giant bones resetting. Jon ascended the icy steps to the top. The world stretched white and endless. Far below, the sea swirled between plates of flow. Southward, the dawn glimmered faint pink. Northward, only swirling blue gloom. Beside him stood Ollys Karstark, now captain of the Watch Archer Regiment. "Cold enough to freeze tears," she muttered. "Tears are wasted moisture out here," Jon said. They stared as gust parted clouds briefly, revealing shimmering aurora ribbons, pale green, flickering above the haunted forest. It mesmerized and terrified, beauty born of forces indifferent to man. "That is no natural light," Alice whispered. "It may be a warning." Jon gripped parapet. Far below, horns blew thrice. Lights bobbed in gloom beyond the tree line. A watchman's cry. Wildling refugees. Jon descended like avalanche. At the gate, rangers dragged 4 shivering figures. Woman clutching infant, 2 half-grown boys, an old man with frost-whitened beard. The woman's lips were blue, her eyes wide with terror. "Please," she rasped. "Dead things. Wolves without shadows." "Let us in." Jor Mormon arrived, brow knitted. "Bring them to warmth," he ordered. Jon helped lift the infant, limp but breathing. As they carried refugees through tunnel, the old man seized Jon's sleeve. "They come," he whispered. "The Pale King rides Ice Dragon. We saw it, wings of mist. It breathes cold fire. Stops hearts." Jon felt a chill deeper than ice. "Rest now," he said. Yet the words lodged in his throat. Messages soared. Arya received Jon's raven. Ice Dragon. She read it aloud to Bran and Sansa. Bran closed eyes as if hearing echoes. "A beast forged of winter storms and souls of dead wyverns," he murmured. "Long ago, they said one slept under the shivering sea. Its heart still," Robb paced. "If they have such a weapon, then Dragonfire may meet it," Sansa whispered. "A dragon across the sea," Arya said. "The girl Daenerys. 3 heads of living flame." She looked to Bran. "Could your dreams reach her?" "If a raven rides wind," Bran said uncertainly. "But seas are wide." Sansa pressed a hand on Bran's. "Try." Bran nodded, closing lids. Under Aurora, left rippling across night, Ned and Stannis convened council at Shadow Tower. Jon arrived late, fresh from refugee intake. He recounted Ice Dragon rumor. Stannis' face remained stone. Melisandre's red lips parted with fervor. "Azor Ahai reborn shall face the beast," she proclaimed, placing long hand upon Stannis' gauntlet. "Fiery sword shall shatter wing of shadow." Ned's brows knit. "Prophecies seldom swing swords. We need strategy. Dragons of flesh and blood may help, but distant." Jon spoke. "The mountain pass at the gorge funnels any mass of wights. If we fortify flames along its ridges, we force them into choke. Archers with fire arrows. Pitch trenches. Then infantry with dragon glass. Let the dragon, if it exists, try flying low where winds swirl unpredictably." Mormont nodded. "Sound tactics." Stannis tapped map. "I'll deploy my ships north of the Shadow Cliff to cut sea flank, assault from behind should they skirt land." Melisandre's eyes blazed. "And I will summon sacred fire." Jon met the priestess's gaze. Flames danced in her pupils like living creatures. He did not flinch. Preparation days blurred. Bowmen drilled firing obsidian shafts into snow-stuffed straw dummies. Scorpions mounted on sleds hurled clay pots of wildfire. Green flames roaring until snow smothered them. Smiths repurposed chains from King's Landings destroyed harbor defenses shipped by Stannis. Lengths of black iron spiked, strung across the gorge mouth to hinder cavalry of the dead. At night, ravens arrived from the wall's western keeps. Reports of small skirmishes but no main host yet. On the eve before departure to the gorge, Ned found Jon sharpening ice by a weak lantern in a log lean-to. Snow drifted through cracks, settling on Jon's shoulders. Ned knelt opposite, gloved hands clasped. "When I saw you first hold a sword, you were 6, he said quietly. "You swung at unseen foes and fell into mud. Now you hold the realm on your edge." Jon continued honing. "Fear still finds gaps in my armor. Fear keeps a man honest," Ned answered. "But do not let it blind you." He drew breath. "There is more I must share should I fall." Jon paused. "Your father was Rhaegar, your mother my sister Lyanna. That you know. But beyond, there runs Dragonfire bloodline older than Westeros. Prophecy may bind you to living flame. Whatever comes, remember who raised you. Honor, duty, mercy. Do not trade them for dragon pride. Duty, mercy." Jon met his eyes, gray to gray. "I am both wolf and dragon. I will not forget either." He sheathed ice. "And you will not fall." Ned almost smiled. "Stubborn as your mother." They embraced. No words. The wind howled through the fissure, as though giant wolves sang lament or promise. Dawn bled across a sky tattered violet. Columns marched toward the gorge. Stark spears, Karstark archers, Manderly heavy infantry, Baratheon knights in black and gold, Night's Watch Rangers in ragged blacks. Huge sledges hauled wildfire casks, each sloshing menace. Obsidian gleamed arrow black beneath coiled ropes. Melisandre rode at Stannis' side, scarlet robes streaming like fire-trailing charcoal. Atop cliffs, engineers hammered iron stakes, strung chains across gap, poured pitch into trenches. Jon supervised, voice echoing across the ravine. Ghost paced perimeter, hackles twitching. Hours later the sky darkened, though still midday. Clouds whirled like stirred ink. Green and blue lights writhed within. Temperatures dropped so swiftly breath crackled. Snow eddied upward, as though sucked by unseen lungs. Horns sounded from rangers upon watchpoint. 3 blasts. Jon looked north. Trees shook violently, frost plumes exploding. Then a rolling gloom emerged, a surge of white shapes, skeletal whites clad in tatters, eyes glowing. Among them lumbered polar bear hulks of rotting sinew, huge elk skeletons. Above, shrikes of blue-feathered white ravens flap. At their rear towered the ice dragon, its wings vast thundercloud sheets, membrane glittering like shattered mirrors. Eyes blazed cerulean stars. Each exhale birthed plume of sparkling frost that hissed across treetops, freezing them so brittle they shattered by wind. Terror rippled along the lines. Some men crossed themselves. Others muttered prayers. Jon raised ice high. Knock. Archers fitted obsidian shafts. Draw. Bows creaked. Loose. A black hail launched, arcs crossing above. Arrows sliced into front ranks. Dozens of whites exploded in shatters of ice crystals. But the host did not slow. Second volley, dotted. Third. Dow. Trenches ignited when torchbearers flung brands. Pitch roared, flames painting the gorge mouth red. The dragon shrieked, a sound of rending glaciers and dove. Its wings stirred blizzard. Blue flames swept downward. Anything it touched petrified into glossy frostglass, then exploded into shards. An entire fireship of wildfire casks froze mid-roar and shattered into inert green crystals. The beast banked, preparing another pass. Stannis spurred his charger to ridge vantage. Scorpions, he bellowed. Baratheon engineers cranked torsion arms. Giant bolts tipped in dragonglass launched. One clipped the dragon's flank. Shards of frozen scale scattered like broken sapphire. The beast wheeled. Shriek turning to fury. Jon ran along rampart, barking orders. Hold the choke. Pikes keep dead back from flames. Karstarks focus on bear whites. Then he saw her. Melisandre standing on outcrop, arms raised, eyes ablaze with inner fire. She chanted in ancient tongue. The ruby at her throat pulsed. Fire flared from trenches higher, twisting into serpentine shapes. The dragon curved toward the pyre lines, drawn to heat, perhaps enraged. As it neared, Melisandre thrust hands downward. Flames erupted upward into pillar, meeting blue frost breath mid-sky. Red and blue collided, sizzling. Steam explosions boomed like drum beats. The dragon faltered, one wing edge scorched where red met blue. It banked clumsily. Ned, sword drawn, advanced along chain line, slashing any white breaching. Ghost and other deer wolves ripped through undead. Snouts stained ice blue. The ground grew slick with fragments that melted into slush of black blood ice. Sudden roar behind. A polar bear white smashed into left flank, scattering spearmen. Jon sprinted, ice flashing. He ducked under paw swipe, drove dragonglass dagger into breastbone of bear. It shrieked, thrashing. He hacked ice at neck. Black steel cut through frozen gristle. Head rolled away, body collapsed inert. Above, the dragon climbed, circling. Scorpion crews reloaded. Stannis drew bright sword. Lightbringer, burning orange as forged steel. He raised it, signaling. Scorpion loosed again. Bolt struck dragon's throat. Crack spider webbed across scales. The beast screamed, blue shards spilling. It exhaled one more time. cone of blue frost ripping across ridge. Dozens of men froze mid-motion. Stannis leapt aside, Lightbringer raised, its heat melting frost near him. Melisandre's chant reached crescendo. Flames formed whiplash vine and lashed dragon's wing root. Crack. Doddened. Membrane tore. Dragon faltered, tumbling, clipping ridge. It plowed through treeline, avalanche of ice and snow. Ground shook, clouds of powder erupted. White host convulsed, some halting as if puppet strings cut. Jon zeised moment. Advance! Shields surged. Pike lines stabbed. Wildfire sappers hurled clay globes into densest ranks. Green flames spun, devouring. Obsidian arrows rained. The ice dragon struggled to rise, one wing mangled. Jon raced downhill with squad of Umber berserkers. They clambered onto wounded beast's flank. Ice's black edge bit into shimmering neck joint. Dairy wolves swarmed underside, jaws crunching brittle scale. Melisandre's flames coiled around blade, wreathing it orange. The dragon thrashed. 2 men thrown clear broke bones. Jon held, muscle screaming. He plunged dagger of dragonglass into eye socket. A high, piercing wail shook valley. The dragon convulsed, then crumbled inward, body fracturing into snow dust and crystalline shards that hissed and dissolved. Jon fell to knees, chest heaving. A hush spread. White's nearest collapsed, lifeless again. Others fled. White walkers at host rear raised arms, calling frost to conceal retreat. They melted into storm, leaving battlefield strewn with glittering debris. Silence, broken only by crackle of dying fires and groans of wounded. Jon wiped gore of frost shards from brow, rising slowly. He scanned for Ned, found him leaning on sword but alive. Stannis stood upon ridge, Lightbringer held high, red flame licking steel. Cheers burst. Hoarse, ragged, jubilant. Rangers hugged archers. Baratheon knights saluted Stark banners. Wolves howled, triumph. Melisandre approached Jon, eyes fever bright. Azor Ahai, she breathed. Jon shook head. Only a man with a sword. She smiled, strangely gentle. A man forged in both ice and fire. She touched his chest, where heart hammered. The war continues, but tonight we carve dawn from dusk. Ravens bore victory home. At Winterfell, crowds gathered in Great Hall, roaring when Arya read aloud. Ice dragon fallen, white host scattered. Starks and Baratheons hold gorge. Dawn breaks. Tears welled unashamed in many eyes. Catelyn knelt before Hearttree, thanking gods both old and new. Sansa penned replies of love and pride. Bran whispered to ravens perched upon branches, telling them to fly far and carry the news that man still fought. But beyond Shattered Valley, in cavern of perpetual frost, the Night King knelt before a frozen lake, hand splayed over glassy surface. Shapes beneath ice churned, more dragons of crystal bone, their forms vast. He murmured wordless call, and the lake cracked. Elsewhere, in deserts of red waste, Daenerys Targaryen felt her dragons shriek skyward, sensing distant kin awoken. She looked west, toward setting sun beyond narrow sea, and thought of fire that must meet cold. In Winterfell's courtyard months later, thaw water trickled from eaves, violets poked from drifts. Jon stood with Arya watching children spar, Rickon among them, laughing. Snowmelt glistened on stones where once Lannister blood stained. Spring breathed, tentative. A kingdom reborn. Arya said softly. A world still worth fighting for, Jon replied. They clasped hands, wolf and dragon entwined. Above, a lone white raven circled, herald of true spring or omen of further trials, none could yet say. But for that heartbeat, hope outshone shadow, and 2 hearts, forged under endless winter skies, beat as one promise against the darkness. Ah, Ka. The sky over Winterfell had begun to bruise with the pale lavenders of an early spring dawn, when Jon Stark felt the first flicker of unease prickle down his spine. Ghost. Sprawled at the foot of the bed, lifted his head an instant later. and growled low in his throat. Hackles rippling like a field of snow whipped by hard wind. Arya stirred beside Jon, her bare shoulder tightening under the wolf fur blankets, eyes sharpening from sleep to alertness in a single breath. No horn sounded, no cry of alarm drifted up through the keep's thick tower walls. Yet both of them reached for their weapons with unspoken certainty. Something pressed upon the air, a cold intent too ancient to mistake for ordinary dread. Jon rose and pulled on leather breeches and wool shirt, buckling a sword belt in one fluid motion. Ice leaned against the windowsill where moonlight had kissed its black edge all night. He hefted the blade and felt its familiar weight steady his pulse. Arya was already lacing her jerkin, needle strapped to her thigh. She cocked her head, listening. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. "No," Jon answered, "and that's why it's bad." The silence outside was too complete. No clatter of armorers' hammers, no stable boys murmuring, no restless caw from the rookery. Even the ravens had gone mute. They descended the spiral steps 2 at a time and emerged into a corridor where torch sconces guttered in a draught that smelled of frost and pine resin. Harsh light etched their shadows long across rough stone. At each arrow loop Arya paused, peering into the quadrangle below. But courtyard shadows lay empty, fresh snow untouched, save for the diagonal slash of wind. Near the great hall's oaken doors, Robb met them in full armor. Scale mail hauberk, wolf-head pauldrons embossed in bright steel, gray cloak fur-line. His breath steamed white. "Ravens everywhere," he said without preamble. They arrived an hour before dawn and simply perched, staring. Then they began to peck at the shutters. Bran felt something in the trees, says the weirwood is warning. Before Jon could reply, the hall doors swung inward on a gust that doused several torches. Bran rode through on Hodor's shoulders, gray eyes glassy with second sight. Snowflakes glittered in his hair like facets of diamond dust. "They come," he said, voice echoing with voices that were not entirely his own. "Night rides upon frozen wings. The lake under Frostfang Gorge is broken." Robb's eyes widened. "Another dragon?" "Two," Bran whispered, staring past them. "One of shadow, one of glass. And with them, march hosts not yet slain. They will reach the wall in 3 days. 3 days." The margin Ned and Stannis had purchased in blood and wildfire dwindled to breaths. Jon felt the hall contract around him, every timber groaning as if the castle recognized doom at its threshold. "Send riders," he told Robb. "Warn Father at the Gorge. Warn Stannis. Warn Eastwatch. Shadow Tower, Castle Black. Use the fastest garrons. No pack beasts, no delay." Robb nodded, already turning to shout for Maester Luwin. "But even ravens need clear sky," Arya said, voice taut. The wind outside moaned. Hunting along the eaves. If a blizzard closes, our messages die in the storm. Then we ride ourselves, Jon answered. "I led men through Cairnwater whiteouts. We can press farther than a bird on wind shear." He looked at Bran. "Where's Father now?" Bran's pupils dilated, tiny mirrors to some far horizon. "He stands on the gorge's southern lip, counting casualties, repairing chains. Stannis is building a long stockade of Greenheart stakes. They believe they have time to rest." "And no, not anymore." Jon turned to Arya. "Ready Nymeria scouts, any hounds that can keep stride. Meet me at the stables in 5. We leave before the sun clears the frost." Arya nodded once and vanished into the gloom, footsteps soft as cat paws. Jon pivoted back to Bran. "Hold the gate. If we fail, you must evacuate the children." Bran shook his head. "If you fail, there is nowhere to run." By the time saddles thudded upon winter-lean horses, gray morning spilled across the bailey like thin milk. Steam curled from nostrils. Hooves struck sparks on pavers. Robb, refusing to remain behind, pulled his helm down and took up position beside Jon. Arya mounted a lithe sorrel mare, Nymeria loping ahead, Ghost flanking. Ace Karstark brought a dozen of her best archers. Lady Dustin sent 6 lancers in boiled leather bearing dragon glass-tipped spears. Rickon stood near the gatehouse, face smudged with sleep. Shaggy Dog pressed against his leg. "Bring them home," the boy said, clutching a wooden direwolf toy. Jon dismounted long enough to kneel and set a hand upon his brother's wild hair. "I promise." He hoped vows spoken to children still held weight in a world unraveling. With a shout, they surged into the swirling snow, banners snapping. The Grey Direwolf, the Manderley Merman, the Karstark Sunburst, the Flayed Man of Bolton, now quartered black to signal loyalty. Boots pounded, hooves cut channels in drifts, and the wind leapt up to swallow their sound. The King's Road south of Winterfell lay half-buried, only the bent shoulders of mile markers peeking above white. Yet Jon pressed the pace, trusting Ghost's keen nose to steer around hidden pits. The first morning passed in roiling gray, the next in a blizzard that erased the world to a tunnel of stinging white. They rode blind, ropes looped between saddle horns, voices hoarse from chanting names of the living like charms against disappearance. At dusk of the second day, the sky cracked open. Shafts of lurid green aurora billowed eastward. The wolves both halted, fangs bared. From the base of a knucklewood ahead, two shapes stumbled into view. Rangers black-clad, half dragging a third figure between them. Robb and Jon dismounted, swords low. "Brothers of the Watch," one rasped, ice crusting his beard. "We fled the lake. Dead things everywhere. Commander Mormont is gone." Jon's stomach clamped. "Gone where?" The ranger's squeezed eyes shut. "Tried to rescue wounded trapped on the ice. The dragon dove. Ice shattered. We saw him no more." Robb exhaled through clenched teeth. Jon laid a hand on the man's shoulder. "We're bound for the gorge. Rest. We'll send men back." But even as he spoke, he felt the fragile thread of certainty unravel. They reached the gorge beneath a sky gashed with crimson. No wind here. Air too cold even to stir. Fires burned low along hastily reforged barricades, but many trenches lay dark, pitch expended, oil reserves gone. Snow stained with ash bore no footprints. It had fallen undisturbed since the last patrol. Jon's boots crunched in eerie stillness as he led the column up the final ridge. Atop the rise he saw the fate of Ned's stockade. Charred stakes jutted like rotten teeth from a shelf of blown-out ice, half fused by some intense freeze. Beyond, the gorge floor had collapsed into a new chasm, its rim glittering with blue crystals. Steam drifted slowly upward, as though the earth itself bled cold. No banners fluttered, no sentries hailed. Robb swallowed audibly. "Where are they?" Arya dismounted and knelt to examine the snow. "Battle here, but no dead. Drag marks, bodies pulled toward that gap." She pointed to a sinuous trough leading into white emptiness. "Whites clean their fields." Jon felt hollow. "Father?" Ghost whined. Nose high. He bounded along ridge, paused, then howled, long, mournful. From far below, an echo answered. A wolf's voice, strained but alive. A moment later, a horn sounded. One blast, then two, wavering. Jon spurred down treacherous switchbacks, ignoring shouts. At the valley floor, amid broken wagons and burned siege gear, he found them. Ned leaning against a shattered scorpion frame. Right leg splinted, face smeared with ash. Ser Jorah crouched nearby, binding the stump where Hallis Mullen's hand had once been. Half a dozen knights watched survivors forming a loose ring, spears out. Their eyes brightened when Ghost padded forward. Ned straightened with a hiss of pain. "Jon, you rode fast." His gaze flicked to the crest, noting new banners. "Good. We need every breathing soul." Jon dismounted and knelt. "Your wound. Dragon frost. It froze the leather to my thigh. Took the flesh with it when they cut free." He managed a wry smile. "Still, better than dead." His expression tightened. Stannis and the Red Woman bought escape. They drew the dragons east, to the cliffs. We lost half our companies, but some reached the Shadow Tower. "Are they alive?" "Stannis? Yes." Ned's voice thickened. "Melisandre too, though she..." Changed. He glanced toward the chasm. She burned herself in wildfire, blamed herself for failing to bind the flame. When the dragon's breath touched her, she burst like an ember in snow. Ned looked back at Jon, then rose again, flames licking her skin but leaving no scorch. She walked into the whiteout leading survivors. Jon stared, rose. Aye. She spoke in a voice like cracking stone. The night consumes itself to feed the dawn. We must reach the wall's heart. She led them north, toward the shivering sea. Ned's brow furrowed. I fear she hunts the Night King alone. Robb joined them, helm tucked under arm. Then we ride after her. Bran, borne by Hodor, arrived last. Eyes wide. No. The wall's heart is not stone. It is memory. Melisandre walks toward the Godswood frozen below the Night Fort, where the Black Gate weeps. If she burns it, the wall's magic dies. Shock rippled. Jon rose. If the wall falls, the entire realm is open. Then we must reach her first, Arya said, voice like drawn steel. Ned tried to stand. Jon steadied him. You ride, Ned ordered. I slow you. Robb objected, but Ned's glare silenced him. Find Stannis. Stop the priestess. We hold here, delay pursuit. He clasped Jon's wrist. Lead them, Lord of Winterfell. Jon bowed, forehead touching his father's knuckles. I will, but I return. They traveled northeast along the base of the wall, its monstrous face shimmering blue-gray under half sun, half aurora. For 2 days they found scant sign of life. An abandoned sled, a black cloak frozen to a tree, a patch of scorched snow where someone had made camp with ember root and no fuel. Then, on the third morning, Nymeria halted at a ridge crest and snarled. Beyond, the battered remnants of Stannis' host straggled through a shallow valley. Men limped, clutching bandaged limbs. A line of Baratheon knights carried makeshift stretchers. In their midst walked Melisandre, crimson robes blackened at sleeve edges, hair streaming wild. Her eyes glowed faint red in the gloom. Stannis rode at her shoulder, face gaunt, Lightbringer sheathed. They trudged toward the Night Fort's ruined bulk, which loomed a league ahead like a dark cathedral fused to the wall space. From its gatehouse a plume of black smoke coiled. Thin, fresh. Jon dismounted and approached. Stannis' knights bristled until Stannis himself waved them aside. Stark, he rasped, voice ragged. Your father lives. I know, Jon said. He sent us. He studied Melisandre. Her skin shimmered as if fire danced beneath. Where do you lead them? Melisandre's gaze fixed on him. Deep wells endless. To the gate the wall forgot. Within its stone works sleeps a heart of weirwood roots. Burn it, and the wall may fall, but only so light may pour north unchecked. Light or shadow? Jon demanded. Both reside in flame, she answered softly. Only through sacrifice may dawn be birthed. Bran, still atop Hodor, raised his voice. If the wall falls before the realm unites, all living things burn or freeze. The gate must remain until dragon and wolf together wield flame enough to stand against dark. Melisandre's eyes flickered, recognition stirring. You, little Greenseer, you tether weirwood song. But old gods slumber. Not asleep, only listening, Bran said. They speak through ravens. They chose Jon, not you, to kindle dawn. A murmur rustled the broken army. Stannis leaned closer to the priestess. You swore my blood would ignite the sword of heroes. Yet Lightbringer dims daily. The fires show other paths. She whispered, voice trembling. Perhaps I misread. She strode toward Jon, stopping arm's length away. Heat radiated. Frost hissed from his cloak. Prove you are Azor Ahai. Extending charred hand toward ice. Tempt this blade in a lover's heart, and it will blaze. Arya stepped forward, knife quick. Hell tempered in your heart if you ask again. Jon lifted a hand, stopping her advance. To Melisandre he said, "We do not forge victory from murder." He looked to Stannis. "King, order her aside. Join us to fortify the Night Fort, not destroy it. If the wall falls now, the dead sweep through, and we lose all." Stannis rubbed a gauntlet across bristled jaw. Strategic sense. He turned to his men. "Hold position. We fortify." Melisandre's lips parted. A spark of fury flared, then doused. She bowed her head. "As you command." For now. But the glow in her eyes dimmed to sullen embers, as though a fire denied air. The Night Fort proved both refuge and nightmare. Its towers leaned at mad angles. Stairs collapsed into pits. Long-abandoned dining halls stank of mold and centuries-old secrets. Yet its curtain wall remained thick, drawn up to merge with the wall proper, offering vantage across leagues of snow. Jon's party and Stannis' survivors set to work. Masons filled breaches with ice blocks, fused by torch brand. Archers chipped murder holes to clearer lines. Bran explored labyrinth corridors until he found the Black Gate, a weirwood door in the cellar tunnel whose face murmured warnings only he seemed to comprehend. He asked it to remain closed for all but living brothers of the Watch. It agreed, voice soft as leaf whisper. That night, council convened near a wobbly hearth. Stannis, Jon, Robb, Arya, Melisandre. Silent, Alys Karstark, Lady Dustin, and Bowen Marsh of the Watch sat around a scarred timber. Maps weighed by stones lay between them. Jon explained Bran's vision. Twin dragons of ice and shadow soon meeting at Duskendale Glacier. The Night King seeking to shatter the wall not with brute force, but with winter magic anchored to two ancient spires. One within the shivering sea, one within the Mirror Marsh far south. The priestess believed burning the root heart would unlock dawn, Jon said. But if we sever the spires, the wall's enchantment becomes mobile, can be wielded like a sword rather than barrier. Stannis frowned. Break the spires and risk collapse anyway. Unless we bind their power to new anchors, Bran interjected. Obsidian monoliths carved with runes of both old gods and Heir. Fire and ice together. Melisandre's head lifted slowly, interest reigniting. That may birth a flame the shadow cannot abide. Robb leaned back. Dragonstone and obsidian supplies one anchor. The other? Old Valyrian glass beneath Giscar Isle, Alice said. But that's leagues south across waters held by pirates. Arya drummed fingers on the table. Then we turn pirates into allies or corpses. Stannis' thin smile cracked weathered lips. Storm's End still owns a dozen swift galleys. I can send ravens to Sir Davos. He sails where others balk. Jon nodded. While ships fetch southern glass, we defend here. If we can lure the Night King into assault before his second dragon hatches, we strike with wildfire and dragonglass. If he breaches, we fall back to anchor points and unleash the wall's power against him. Melisandre uncurled fingers folded like talons. I can weave flame wards along curtain wall. They will burn cold flesh, but spare living. Bowen Marsh coughed. We've scant oil, less pitch. Wind burn wards require neither. She said. Only blood and prayer. Jon's jaw tightened. Whose blood? Mine. Her eyes met his. And yours, Wolf Dragon. Mixed, the conflagration will obey our command. Robb slammed fist. Not happening. Jon raised a hand. Measured drops suffice? A bowl, she answered. Jon opened his mouth. Arya shook her head. There are other ways. But the decision settled when Bran murmured, Trance soft. Blood for blood. One cup now may spare rivers later. Under first full moon of cracked spring, the ritual began. Atop the Night Fort's highest parapet, Melisandre drew a circle of powdered obsidian chipped from dragonstone arrowheads. She painted runes in wolf blood, volunteered from Ghost's paw. A slight cut sealed quickly, and in drops of her own flame-tinged ichor. Jon sliced his palm and let crimson drip into a pyre bowl filled with salt, soot, and powdered bone. Melisandre chanted. Zixos Eorsi Zahin Hen Vala Druta. Flames burst white gold, curving into tendrils along battlements, racing into the night until the entire curtain wall glowed like molten iron. A shudder rippled through the wall itself, crack like thunder echoing down its length, as though ice recognized new purpose. Bran, far below at the Black Gate, felt ancient power ripple along roots. When dawn came, every snowfield east of the night fort was scorched glass. Yet, no living soldier felt heat. Wolves lounged unconcerned. Melisandre collapsed, but rose moments later unburned, only weary. Jon bound his palm, flexing fingers before gripping ice. Then horns sounded. 2 blasts from the eastern watch cliff. Scouts spied movement on horizon. An army in jagged columns, glinting faint blue. They had less than a day. In the hours that followed, Winterfell's ravens flew non-stop from the night fort, each bearing the same Stark message. Final stand begins at moonset. Burn your dead, then ride. White Harbor's fleets weighed anchor. Manderly's whalers, Karstark reavers, and Bear Island longboats turned north. Lady Mage forged alliance with Ironborn captains keen to fight living dead over southern rivals. Knives rested at least for now. Across the Vale, Sansa persuaded Lady Anya Waynwood to send her best archers under banners not flown since the First Men's era, a sign that old grudges bowed to older fears. Even Lannister gold moved. Tyrion's new trade fleet diverted north, carrying obsidian shipments. A single letter from him reached Jon. I find death's equality oddly freeing. May your blade sing, a toast when this ends. Jon smiled grimly, then reread until embers consumed the parchment. At the wall, final defenses rose. Wildfire pots hung from chain cradles. Scorpions restring with sinew. Ua. Archers practiced knocking 2 obsidian arrows side by side for double fire. Robb drilled infantry in shield lock around brazier pikes. Halves tipped with iron baskets to hold burning pitch. A tactic cribbed from Giscari wars written in old tomes. Bran wandered ramparts at dusk. Hodor shadow at heel. Ravens perched wherever he passed, black eyes tracking. When he reached Jon, he spoke softly. Tonight we weave ourselves into legend. Remember, light is memory. Do not let darkness make you forget why you fight. Nendam Nawans. Jon squeezed his brother's shoulder. I fight for tomorrow's wives, children. Songs. He glanced to Arya, who practiced quick draw with needle and a dagger tip of dragon glass. Their eyes met, fierceness mirroring. Moonrise spilled silver across frozen expanses. Snow began to fall, each flake sparkling faintly blue, tainted by the power that drove it. The dead appeared. They advanced in surreal hush, thousands moving as one. Pale giants bearing tree trunk clubs. Skeletal mammoths wreathed in frost. Wildling dead, still clutching rust-eaten axes. At their center rode the Night King on a mound of black ice, shaped like a throne fused to the back of a towering spider creature. Behind him, wings unfolded. The second ice dragon, smaller but more lethal, scales clear as glass, so that moonlight refracted into blades. Jon raised ice, torchlight dancing along its dark ripples. Archers, he shouted. Skies. Obsidian whistled upward. First volley clanged off dragon's hide, but second volley pierced wing membranes. Jagged cracks spidered across clear ice, forcing the creature to bank. Wildfire pots ignited mid-air at torch arrow contact, drenching white ranks. Green conflagration tore through front lines, melting flesh to slurry. Melisandre stood atop gate tower, arms spread. Flame runes along battlement flared, spewing columns of white gold fire that arced outward like sun flares. Wherever flame kissed a white, it flashed to steam and dust. Yet for each fallen, 5 more advanced. Dead giants hurled blocks of ice, dousing flames and smashing merlons. The Night King thrust spear of starglass toward the wall. A beam of crystalline frost shot forth, striking rune line. Fire sputtered. Melisandre staggered, then regained words, chanting louder. Red energy ward blue, producing a shattering shriek, neither sound nor ice. On lower yard, shield locks met white tide. Robb roared orders, Great John bellowing beside him. Shields held, pikes thrust, wolves tore. Nymeria leapt atop a skeletal mammoth, raking spinal shards until beast collapsed. Ghost lunged at armored White Walker, jaws locking on icy throat. Dragon glass dagger in Joan's hand finished the creature, but the dragon wheeled again. This time it dove low, exhaling vapor that froze flame runes, snuffing half the wall defenses. It reared back, preparing main assault at section where mortar cracked. Jon sprinted along parapet, searching for Scorpion, but crew dead. He glimpsed Arya limping from a collapsed tower, bleeding leg, but still able. "Arya!" he shouted, pointing to Scorpion. She understood instantly. Together they hauled new bolt tipped with spear-length dragonglass. Wind howled, hair whipping. Jon cranked mechanism while Arya sighted along shaft. The dragon banked, throat pulsing with frostfire. "Now!" Arya cried. Jon loosed. Bolt streaked, embedding through open maw into spine. An explosion of ice shards rippled. The dragon convulsed. Scream. Slicing the night, it spiraled downward, smashing into the outer bailey, crushing dozens of whites and half the stockade. But as it died, a wash of frostfire shot out, sweeping across rampart directly at Jon and Arya. Jon shoved Arya behind, collapsed Merlin, twisting to shield her. Frostfire engulfed him. Searing cold that seethed beyond pain. His vision collapsed to starbursts. Through roaring silence, he felt Melisandre's flame runes ignite again, meeting Frostwave, shielding Arya. But his own flesh cooled, heart thudding slower. Images flickered, Lyanna whispering, Ned smiling, Arya's laugh, Bran's ravens, Sansa embroidering the new wolf dragon banner, Ghost's red eyes. He clung to them, memory as torch. Then warmth rose, a heat from within, not flame but purpose. Ice pulsed in his grip, blade drawing frost from his blood. Black steel glowed faint, then bright. Veins of red-orange seeping through like magma beneath obsidian crust. Jon gasped as life flooded back, pain replaced by fierce clarity. Ice had become light. He rose. Frost scattered from cloak like shattered glass. Arya stared in amazement. Around them, soldiers paused, witnessing blade afire with dawn-colored flame, not destroying but warding cold. Azor Ahai, Melisandre breathed from tower top. But Jon did not hear. He walked toward the Night King who had dismounted Spider-Beast, and now strode across slaughter ground, spear raised. They met atop broken stone. The Night King thrust spear. Jon parried, sparks of frost and fire. Ice cut back, biting deeper than steel should into ice armor. Jon felt scores of memories, every Stark ancestor, every Targaryen dream, surging through sword into foe. Each blow chipped away eternity's chill. Yet the Night King moved with impossible speed, spear trailing fractal cold. One glancing strike sliced Jon's shoulder, freezing blood to crystal. He grunted. Shifted stance taught by Roderick years before, and drove upward feint, then side slash. Ice cut through spear haft. Shards tinkled. The Night King staggered, fissure crawling down his breastplate. Jon Zeitzed moment, plunging sword into fracture. Orange glow spread like sunrise under dark ice. For heartbeat nothing happened. Then, a thunderous crack. The Night King erupted into a cloud of ice dust, so fine it shimmered like diamond rain. Silence thundered. Across the field, every white halted. Some collapsed. Others shuddered as blue light guttered in eyes, then winked out. Giants toppled. Mammoths crumpled. Even surviving White Walkers shattered where they stood, their magic tether severed. A wind exhaled, long and bitter, then fell still. Snowflakes resumed gentle descent. White, not blue. Dawncrest reddened horizon. Robb removed helm, staring wide-eyed. Melisandre sagged, red glow extinguished, but smile serene. Bran, far above, heard ravens cry triumphant. Arya sheathed needle, tears freezing with joy. Ghost tilted white muzzle, howling a note of victory soon echoed by every living wolf. Jon stood quiet, sword still brimming emberlight. Slowly flame receded, leaving ice dark once more. Frost on his shoulder melted to water. He looked at the sky brightening over the wall and whispered, "For the living." 2 weeks later, the snows around the night fort melted faster than any spring thaw in memory. Wildflowers sprouted where frostfire and dawnflame had mingled. The wall remained, its power undimmed, though changed. No longer rigid barrier, but sleeping giant ready to rouse again, should darkness stir. Under Bran's gentle coaxing, the Black Gate sang in content hush. Stannis pledged before Godswood that when throne disputes settled, he would convene the Great Council and grant the North its self-rule. Robb accepted terms on behalf of Ned. Still healing. Rivermen, Vale Knights, Tyrell archers, even Ironborn chiefs arrived by ship or sled, not for war, but to help bury dead and stand witness to new age. On a cool morning of pale sun, Jon and Arya ventured south of the night fort to a hill adorned by early lupine. They sat beneath a lone sentinel pine, wolves sprawled beside them. Below, armies dismantled trebuchets, melted ice barricades, planted seedlings along ravine. "Feels strange," Arya said, plucking purple blossom. "No war nipping our heels. There will be councils. Greedy men. Winter's teeth linger." Jon smiled softly. "But for now, enough peace to breathe." She leaned against him. "We keep our pact. When realm rebuilds." He took her hand. "A wedding under summer stars." "Summer." She echoed, wonder in voice. "Imagine heat on skin instead of frostbite." He chuckled. "I almost cannot." They grew quiet. Far to east, glare on horizon hinted at open water where sea ice had cracked. Sign of warmer days. A raven swooped overhead, white feathers streaked black. It dropped single quill at Bran's feet below and croaked like laughter. Messages still carried. Life still moved. Jon squeezed Arya's hand, feeling pulse identical in strength to his own. Where wolf and dragon once warred, they now beat as one. Above them the wall of ice shimmered like glass lit from inside, each crystal reflecting sunrise into myriad hues. For the first time in living memory, those colors were not warnings of doom, but heralds of all that might grow, when shadows finally withdrew. No songs marked that morning. No herald scroll proclaimed what had occurred on this strip of frozen frontier. Yet in quiet hearts across Westeros, a wave of certainty spread. Winter could be endured, dawn could follow night, and even steel forged for killing could become a light to guide the lost. The North remembered, the South awoke, and the world turned toward possibilities unseen since the very first snows. Jon rose, helping Arya to her feet. They started downslope to rejoin family and allies, leaving footprints in damp earth instead of powdery drift. Behind them, the sentinel pine shook free last icicles. They fell and shattered, tinkling like bells. Thus ended the longest night the North had ever known, and thus began its first true spring.